Blank check with Griffin and David. Blank check with Griffin and David. Don't know what to say or to expect. All you need to know is that the name of the show is Blank Check.
Have you ever been in love in podcast, Joshua?
Can't say I've had that pleasure, Reggie.
Well, you're still young. Maybe you still have a chance. In love in podcast, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's about as good as you can get. I was
Right?
like watching the movie looking for,
Yep.
possible quotes and
Well, and also, David and I were talking about this, and we'll talk about this, but we got too many Davids this episode.
Too many
We got
Davids.
hashtag the two Davids.
Yep.
Or as you said, these are the Daves I know.
they're all here.
All two of them. But the lines that stick out to me most in this movie are the lines that are directly lifted verbatim from Charade, which are the lines that stick out like a sore thumb because they're clearly out of a different movie.
A different screenplay.
Every time they reappropriate a line that I find so charming in Charade, you're like, where the fuck did this come from?
Right.
does not fit whatsoever. Yeah.
Is he the only writer on this?
No, this one has
it has
so many-
four
so many
writers.
writers.
Okay, can I talk about this? 4 writers. 1, Jonathan Demme, who often is not credited as a writer on one of his films.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
2 is Steve Schmidt, who when I clicked on Wikipedia, it directed me to Steve Schmidt, the campaign manager for John McCain, who was the subject of HBO's Game Change.
Yeah, the sort of bullet-headed guy.
Played by Woody Harrelson.
Right,
It is not,
right.
in fact, the same Steve Schmidt.
You're
but
kidding me.
For half a minute, I got amped. Okay?
Did this guy like hard pivot to
That's what
right,
but then pivoted back to politics. Third screenwriter is, what's her name? Jessica
Bendinger,
who wrote Bring It On.
Yeah.
Then wrote
wrote
Aquamarine. Stick It, and
Aquamarine.
directed Stick It. Was kind of the patron
wrote,
saint of the teen girl movie.
Right, she wrote First Daughter, if you remember
Yes.
that one.
And then hasn't made a movie since Stick It, which,
J.D.
Stick It,
Holmes.
by the way, fucking slaps.
Stick It's good.
Stick
That's
It with
the one
Jeff Bridges?
Missy Peregrine,
Yeah,
right?
that movie honks.
That's my word.
I know. I'm just trying to get it out
I
there.
like it.
But hasn't worked since then. This is the one outlier in her career. It doesn't fit in with the rest of her oeuvre.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool
Did
that
she have
Demme
other
hired her.
screenwriting credits before this?
Bring It On, I believe, is her first screenwriting
Bring
credit.
It
that would've
On
been- yeah,
would
that'd
be
been
the
before.
same year, a year before.
before,
Right.
Yeah, that's it.
Right, and then it's all teen girl movies. Creme de la creme teen girl.
She had also worked on Sex and the City, I think is a very low level.
Right. But that was her other big
credit.
credit, yes. That
So-
was
so
so she
she's
came
done
out of
that.
Sex and the City. And then the fourth screenwriter on this movie,
Yes, Peter Stone, who wrote Charade.
but
and is credited here as Peter Joshua because he hated the movie.
he hated the movie, so he used the name that Cary Grant uses in Charade as his fake name to distance himself from the movie. And then this movie flips that fake name. So instead of Peter Joshua, it's Joshua Peters. But it's now credited as being written by Peter Joshua, who's not a real person.
Also, he's a great writer. He wrote, Taking Pelham 1, 2, 3. Like, he wrote a lot of, fun 70s, 60s, 70s movies.
And hated this movie and was joined in that sentiment by most of the world.
That's too strong because no one saw the fucking thing. But yeah, most people who saw it, yes.
The 13 people
We're
plus
like, no,
Roger
thank
Ebert.
you.
Yeah.
Here's an astonishing fact that I just noticed while looking for a quote on the IMDb page. Top trivia fact on Truth About Charlie is Mark Wahlberg considers this his worst film.
Now, that might be some snippet from an interview that was done pre The Happening.
Because he talks about The Happening quite a bit.
He often will
It's a
dunk
little
on The
praise.
Happening. But that is, that's there's some
Quite
competition.
a sentiment.
How do you feel this compares to The Happening on the Wahlberg scale?
This is 1,000 times better,
This is much better.
and I feel like his miscasting is
A little less profound.
yes.
The Happening is just the platonic ideal of like wrong place, wrong time for him.
The Happening is also a perfect example of one of my least favorite phenomenons in film, which is actor hates their character.
Yes.
Is so embarrassed by and resentful towards the person they've been hired to play, the fictional character.
All right.
This, it feels like he's trying. It's a bit of an odd fit, but it's less embarrassing than The Happening, where he feels so actively embarrassed to play a nerd.
It's also a role he keeps working on. This is the same character as All the Money in the World, basically.
It feels like
he keeps
high status.
returning to this
Every
role.
7 or 8 years, he comes back to, can I be the super calm, intelligent, sophisticated man?
Right.
When Wahlberg is always good with a chip on his shoulder.
That's
He
what
can
I always
never
say. He
be
needs
the
to be low
guy-
status, not high status.
He can never be the guy completely in control. He always has to prove something to someone.
Introduce our podcast so that I can take you through Wahlberg just up to here. That brief And introduce our guest.
Of course.
Yep.
This podcast is called Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin.
Right. I'm David.
And,
David Lowery.
well,
The other David.
Hashtag
Two
the two
Davids.
Davids.
Yep.
It's a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers, given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. This is certainly a crazy passion project at a pretty fucking big check.
A $60 million movie, I think.
$60 million
This was
15 years
60
ago.
million.
Yeah. So this is like an $80 million movie.
I mean, I think it's also, I guess it's that era of, Wahlberg's probably getting a big check, right? He's become an A-lister.
What? I mean, this is right after Planet of the Apes.
Right. This is his worst A-list period where people are like, the guy can do anything, right? And then very quickly they're like, no. He can't do
Planet
anything.
of the
It's
Apes
one of
and Perfect Storm.
That's right.
Right.
That's what I want to take you through is that he really had
Well,
some big hits.
Let me finish my introduction.
Yes, thank you.
Sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce, baby.
Sure.
This is a mini-series on the films of Jonathan Demme. It's called Stop Making Podcast. Today we're talking truth about Charlie, arguably his biggest bounce, certainly financially, in relation to its gross.
I would think so.
The biggest bounce.
Yeah.
And we got the great David Lowery with us, back for the second time, director and writer, Old Man of the Gun.
Did I screw up the
Keep
intro
track
earlier
of-
when I said my last name? It was
That's
supposed to be.
You have to talk before we introduce you.
Well, no, I
exactly
know
how we
that,
want
but I
it.
was like, should I have just said David and left it a little bit of a mystery?
Oh, I suppose.
I wasn't
The
going to give you a
hashtag.
line reading. I think either one worked. I was happy
It seemed
with what you
okay.
did.
I probably screwed it up even more by talking about it now. But
No,
you're
that's
all right.
definitely, we're keeping that in and
great,
doubling
great.
it.
Keep it all in.
But it's so excited to have you back on the show.
It's a thrill to be back. So much has happened in the past year.
That's crazy.
what a year.
It's been about,
Just over a year.
yeah, because
Yeah.
we did Sleepy Hollow long before we
well
put
before.
it up on the feed.
Yeah.
Right?
So I think the last time you saw me, I was leaving here to go buy a suit for the premiere of Old Man the Gun.
Correct. And
It
I
was-
talked about it in a following episode, but
You
I went
sat
to that
front row
premiere,
center.
and that suit was incredible.
It was a little ill-fitting. You can find the pictures.
No,
and
I mean, I was stuck because you were selling so hard, like, oh, I feel like silly. I didn't pack anything. I'm going to be underdressed. I need to buy something. And you were talking about, like, I'm going to be so under the gun, no pun intended, trying to find something last minute. And then I thought you had a killer look.
It was a classic Zara 15-minute walk in, walk
Hey.
It
out.
was a great suit. I thought good fit. Maybe you
was-
want tighter usually, but it was a good fit.
It was good enough. It was good enough. I mean, the whole screening, you might say, was a little loose. The Q&A was a little loose.
A little loose.
Why was it loose? I wasn't there.
It was freewheeling. I'm trying to find the right words to describe it that aren't backhanded
It was
because I don't
charming.
mean any. Yes,
There were questions that were asked from the audience that were not heard, and then other answers that were given. But it was all fun.
there were both bizarre questions and bizarre answers.
Loosey goosey.
You had like 8 members of the cast there.
I think
It was a
everybody
pretty
was there.
large
Yeah.
contingency.
Oh, that's and a lot of characters.
Yeah.
Redford gave the exact same answer twice to 2 different questions.
Exactly. That was one of those
It was pretty
instances.
incredible. And it was a long answer. And it was almost word for word identical for 2 different questions. And you were like, this is a man who's been doing press for decades.
And that was a week of that. I
Yeah,
was
I'm
like,
sure,
It was
right.
like I heard that answer so many times in the same, and like, God bless him, like he knows exactly what to say, even if he repeats it.
It's that thing. The people who are that good at being famous, I have noticed, really plan and perfectly script, if not literally type out, but really settle on, this is my answer. This is how I'm going to talk about these subjects. I will not leave press up to chance. And so they know, like, their activation points. Question A goes with answer Z.
Exactly.
And they connect the dots. But it was amazing to watch him just reset on a second question.
Versus the rest of us that say things that we were like, oh my God, did I just say that?
Yeah,
Oh
right.
my God.
Right. It's like his
I've just
anxiety.
dug my own grave.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
He's just totally chill.
Yeah.
Anyway, I made that, I made that movie. I premiered that movie. I wore a suit.
Great suit.
Very nice job.
Went and made another movie.
When made another movie.
Working on that right now. And now I'm back in New York just hanging out and dropping by to talk, to dish on Demme.
Talk
The
Char.
dish on Demme.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, some
a little
Demme
dish.
dishing.
Oh,
Little
yeah.
Demme
Get our Demme
dishing.
dishes out. We're wiping them clean. I don't know.
Competitively, as in Rachel getting married.
Oh, great scene.
Great scene.
At this point,
We have
you
not
know,
done our Rachel getting married episode.
this episode will be, broadcast in about 3 years when
Yes.
we've made it through.
It's going to be our Valentine's Day episode. It's
Oh,
gonna be
wonderful.
mid-Feb.
I'll say this.
Perfect.
Yes. I mean, we're recording this in November. It's many months away, the release. We have pretty much recorded every episode
Up
that
to
takes
there.
place before this.
Okay, great.
We've
think
gone through them
only-
and we've been largely Beloved is the only one we
Beloved's the
haven't
only
done
Demme
yet.
we haven't done chronologically, and we
Right.
have not done any Demmes post this.
Yes.
So you haven't done Beloved yet.
We haven't done Beloved, but we've done Philadelphia, Silence of the Lambs.
We've done
Marriage to the
everything.
Mob.
So
We've done all
you're not
previous-
catching us out of order. Last time we did Sleepy Hollow, which is at the midpoint.
We did that very early.
We
in Burton.
recorded with you because you were not a native New Yorker. We recorded with you like a month before we recorded any other Burtons.
Oh, that's right.
We were still recording Nancy Myers, and we did the one Burton out of order with you.
It's good, though.
Now, psychologically, you're catching us at this exact point.
We've
in Demi's
really
career.
been steeped.
Yes, we've been steeped, and we've been going largely in order.
Yeah.
And so it makes this movie all the more bizarre to watch.
It really does.
It is so funny. I know you're chomping at the bit to get that Wahlberg out.
No, I know. Go ahead.
But it is so funny how his 90s are like such a weird
They're
kind
sparse.
they're sparse. There are obviously so many documentaries and like little things in between, but his 3 narrative fictional films in the 90s are weirdly of a piece where they're like the most somber, straight-faced Demme. Like he steps away from the playful thing in terms of energy.
Yeah.
And it's like him making like 3 dramas, you know? And they shift a little in what kind of drama they are, but like it's him using all the style that he developed in comedy and applying it to the dramatic studio film with big movie stars and, you know, and the like. And then the 2000s become him being like, how do I bring that weird Demme stuff back, but also like smuggle it into remakes of classic Hollywood films?
I don't know how else to describe it.
It's so interesting, you know, to discover where Demme came from before that 90s period, because like I, you know, certainly became aware of him with Silence of the Lambs in Philadelphia. That was like when I was like 11, 12, 13. And so I was like, okay, this is a prestige filmmaker who wins Oscars.
He seemed like the most classically Oscar-y director.
Exactly. And
of
that's
that
just all I
time.
knew about him until like getting into, I think most people of like my generation, our generation probably are like, oh, Paul Thomas Anderson loves this guy? I guess we should check out this early stuff.
Right,
And-
because you go like, Silence of the Lambs, bizarre Oscar heavyweight. Philadelphia almost gets reduced to the basic idea of an Oscar baity movie. And then Beloved
Right, it becomes
is
like the people think of it as a temp when it's not.
It's not.
Wait, I
It's
have
a
to
great
ask,
film.
did you do the merchandise spotlight on Philadelphia?
Oh my God, no, Lowry. What's the merchandise spotlight on Philadelphia?
But David, yes, what is your Demme experience? How do you come to him? What do you think of him now?
I feel like whenever Silence of the Lambs came out,
91.
it was like on the cover of Newsweek, and that was my parents subscribed to Newsweek, so I remember. I think I talked about this last time. Like
Possibly.
that's also how I discovered Sundance and Tim Burton was through my parents' Newsweek subscription.
Sure.
In any case, there was a cover story about Silence of the Lambs and I think violence in media that also included an image of Laura Palmer wrapped in plastic.
Yeah, that was Silence of the Lambs was definitely one of those like, has Hollywood finally gone too far?
Yeah.
Right.
And the Laura Palmer image, which I assumed just flipping through the magazine, freaked me out so badly that I had my parents like throw that magazine away because it just really scared me.
You cursed it.
But I assumed that image was in Silence of the Lambs. So when I finally, several years later, watched Silence of the Lambs, I was just like dreading that moment. Right.
And then when you finally watched Twin Peaks, did you start screaming?
Yes, basically. By that point, I was like, "Oh wait, that's that head." Like,
it is such an indelible image. That you mean the one that's directly over her head?
yeah, just a classic.
where she's-
Yeah.
And I think my parents they were very strict about what movies we were allowed to see, and so I didn't see the film until high school.
Sure.
But I did read the book. So I read Silence of the
weird.
Lambs. I read Red Dragon. Really loved both
Those
of them.
books rule.
I got to Hannibal after I'd already seen the movie.
Threw the book across the room.
It was lurid. I think Jonathan Demme did the same thing.
So mad.
Producer Rachel talking shit on Tom Harris. Yeah, grab that mic, Rachel.
Old Tommy H.
For those,
I'm sorry.
if you couldn't hear it, Rachel said she threw her copy of Hannibal across the room.
At the end, like when
yeah,
she,
at the end.
when
Yeah.
she gets
So
to-
out of disgust at where the story went, but not
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
That seems like what most people did.
yes, people were upset.
Yeah, it was real bad.
I
invested so much time in those books,
Yeah,
and
They're
they were good
books.
until the end.
Hannibal is all over the place.
Was the Hannibal Lecter saga your Harry Potter, Rachel? Were you the person who was like, I can't wait to see what happens in book 3?
Well, I wasn't expecting that.
that
no,
she
I
would
read them
get
like
with
last year.
Hannibal. Right.
Yeah, what the fuck is up with that?
It's what he decided to do.
I appreciate it.
No,
I
yeah.
think it's a strong. I mean, it's a different then it's different than you might expect. But I was like, okay, I appreciate that choice. Like he
It's a
went
swing.
for it.
It's a
It's
choice.
a swing, and he
It's
went
a
for it.
choice.
The
And
thing that I hated the most was there's a line that's something like, it turned out that Clarice was just really uptight because she needed some good dick.
Yeah,
that
fucking
stuff's not
sucks.
good. That stuff's not good.
That's
Welcome. Thank you for
20 years
coming
ago.
to my TED Talk.
Can I throw out a hot take quickly?
Sure.
I think that's bad.
Good dick is just not ever really going to be
Ever.
a phrase that lands
Ever.
like smoothly.
I don't
feel
think
like.
good dick should ever be said in any context. Especially not when you're talking about Cheney. It's my definition of bad dick.
There's this movie I saw last year. I'm going to forward it on to you about Dick Cheney.
Oh, thank God, because no one's told that story.
And just the other day, Christian Bale said that he heard what Dick Cheney thought of the movie or
Oh,
of his
really?
performance.
Sure.
Yeah.
And because a friend of his went to had a kid at a private school, and Dick Cheney happened to be there, and was like, "Oh, my friend Christian played you in a movie," and he's like, "Oh, tell him he's a dick."
Wow.
And that's like,
Tell him he's a dick.
Yeah.
it could go both ways. It's kind of a I don't
He
know.
is dick, of
He's
course. Right.
he's like, tell him he.
You're like, was he being
was dick.
petty or is
It's
he
hard
our
to-
finest comedian? It's one or the other.
This was last week.
Yeah.
Breaking news. It'll be
Is he
so old by.
The new George Saunders?
So anyway, I then did not see Philadelphia when it opened, but did see the Saturday Night Live commercial that we just watched on Silence.
Which I'm sure only fed into that idea of, oh, here's this very kind of stodgy Oscar drama.
Precisely. That's
Right.
and to
That was
be
how everyone joked
honest,
about that
I didn't
movie.
have that much interest in seeing it. Like it didn't appeal to me.
We talked about the same thing that I feel like we watched the movie, David and I both, out of obligation to fill in our Oscar blanks much later in life. And then you watch it and you're like, this thing is fucking weird.
Beautifully made.
It's a beautifully made, incredibly esoteric, strange film.
I can't wait to see it again.
So good.
As I listen to this podcast, I'll be revisiting a lot of these films, and that's when I haven't seen since probably I was 16.
And then Beloved mostly looked like, oh, this is like a failed Oscar play.
Now I love Beloved.
Interesting.
I love the book.
Sure.
I think
It's
I read the book in high school.
Yeah.
I read it again recently. It is absolutely incredible. I think the movie is about not as good as the movie could be, but a really good.
It's a really careful and
it's
thoughtful and loving adaptation of this
It
great
is.
A
work
writer
of American
largely
literature.
thought of to be kind of
unadaptable.
unadaptable.
Yeah, and I would rather see that movie than like the HBO miniseries.
Right.
Like I'd rather see it compressed into 3 hours or 3.5. It's quite long.
I think it's about 3. Yeah.
But I love, I'm sure you'll talk about this more in the episode, but I love the way Demme, and we don't need to get into like whether Demme should have been the one to do it or not, whatever the case may be.
Sure.
Oprah brought it to him. Great. It's, I love the way he treated the ghost story aspects of it. So much like a horror film.
Right.
Like there's like full on poltergeist
It's
attacks.
like a poltergeist movie.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think it, towards the end, you can kind of feel that he's trying to cram a lot in there from the book. And the book isn't long. It's just that there's so much, it contains so much.
Right.
The breadth of it is so big.
So did you see that when it came out?
So I saw that when it came out.
Okay.
I saw that. It was, by that point, that was 98.
97.
97.
98. You're right. I'm sorry.
And I was a projectionist at that point.
Okay.
I'd been a projectionist for a couple months.
Right.
And so I remember watching that the night before it opened, along with, I believe, The Waterboy. Was that the other? There was some...
I think that sounds right because, Beloved was thought of as this is going to be a blockbuster and an Oscar player, and then it bombed so hard, it might have opened directly against The Waterboy.
No, The Waterboy's a month later. I'm now trying.
okay.
We'll have already played this box.
There's some other comedy that opened
some
opposite.
like very broad
Yeah.
comedy that yeah.
And so I remember watching both of those, whatever that was that night.
That's a quite dull feature.
But I loved Beloved at the time.
It's
I
like
watched
Practical
it again.
Magic.
Oh,
was
interesting.
love that movie.
Is there a comedy in the top 10 that week?
Well, that Practical Magic's the new movie. I don't know. We'll do the box office game later. Griffin.
We're time traveling a little here.
Yeah.
So I really liked that. That was around the same time that I was really getting into Paul Thomas Anderson because
And he started
Boogie Nights
shouting
had been
out.
out for a year at that point.
Yes.
Rediscovered Hard Eight as a result of that.
Right.
And on the Hard Eight commentary track, which is terrific, there's actually like 2 or 3 commentary tracks on that disc.
Right.
He talks about Demme constantly.
Right.
It's just like a
Who's
Demme
his
love fest. So
number
then you're like
one guy.
talking about Melvin and Howard. I'm like, what's Melvin and Howard?
Right.
Go rent that. And so that was sort of my introduction to Demme's earlier films, but I didn't really see most of them. Like I went back, watched Melvin and Howard, Maybe no, I didn't even. That was it. I kind of just
Something
stopped
Wild,
there.
maybe?
I didn't see
No?
Something Wild until a couple years later.
Right.
But you
Marriage
at
to the
least
Mob.
now had a context for where
Exactly.
he came
Exactly.
from,
Right.
a sense of who he was.
And then,
Yeah.
and so by the time Truth About Charlie came out, I kind of had that sense that this was him wanting to go back to those madcap roots,
Yes.
Playful
Yes.
the playful films.
Right.
And I remember that, obviously The Truth About Charlie is just chock full of Shoot the Piano Player references. They're very overt. But I remember Paul Thomas Anderson talking at the time of Punch Drunk Love, referencing Shoot the Piano Player as well. And so I had this theory that they were probably just both hanging out, and they had both just made these huge epics. that had-
You have to imagine once PTA makes Boogie Nights and is a big, he's like, I gotta meet Demme. Right now, I'm famous enough that I get to meet my idol.
Yeah.
Right?
exactly.
Right.
So, and they were clearly close friends by the time he passed away. And I never met either of them, but I did see them both present Greaser's Palace at the Austin Film Festival, which was incredible.
It is a thing I feel like we haven't talked about, but on Documentary Now, they've done 2 Demme parodies.
Yes, they did.
And in
the
both
Swim
of
to
them,
Cambodia and
Paul
Stop
Thomas
Making
Anderson plays the Demme analog off camera.
Right.
Which is really nice.
So
They
brilliant.
make it the same fictional director doing Stop Making Sense. And Swim
I've
to
seen the Stop
Cambodia.
Making Sense one. Which one was the?
The Swimming to Cambodia, which I believe it's called Parker Gale's Location is Everything.
Yeah, it's him
so
talking about
funny.
not wanting to give up his apartment.
It's him talking about Upper West Side real estate,
Yeah.
and it's Hader in a big,
It's so good.
wig, and it's great.
And there's
That's
obviously
great.
a lot less of the Demme character in that, but I think you hear Paul Thomas Anderson saying like action and cut at the beginning and end
Right.
of it, and then in the Stop Making Sense one, he does a lot of off-camera interview lines.
So
It's also just, I mean,
Oh, that's great.
the work they do on that
whole
show
that series is
to nail the
Yeah.
exact visual style. It's
Well, they like go out of their way to like get the same lenses.
they get the
and,
lenses,
like,
they
the
get
same
they
stocks
make sure the
and-
color.
yeah.
So I had this theory that they had, post Magnolia, post Beloved, they're both just exhausted from these huge epic films that they'd made, which had kind of underperformed. And they were like, let's just go watch some French New Wave movies. And they watched Shoot the Piano Player, and they're like, man, it'd be great to make a movie like this.
Right.
And they both
Such a
went
good movie.
off
Yeah.
and kind of made a movie in that spirit. And they both opened within 2 weeks of each other
Yeah,
in
that's
2002.
Mhm.
So that was my theory for a long time. In preparation for this, I was like looking for interviews with Jonathan Demme,
Mhm.
and finally, like there were none in print anywhere really. There was one maybe on the AV Club or something like that. But then I found a Charlie Rose episode that he did,
Right.
and he said that Paul Thomas Anderson was planning to write the screenplay for Truth About Charlie with him.
Wow.
Weird.
And so it actually like
So they
that
really
that really
talked
was
about
it,
it.
yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And that but then he got the idea for Punch Drunk Love and just
Yeah.
went and did that instead.
Those are interesting too, like those 2 movies zagging off at different points where Punch Drunk Love is so much reverse engineered from Paul Thomas Anderson's love of Adam Sandler and trying
Yeah.
to like figure out what he finds interesting about that star persona. But it's also like a major scale down from Magnolia and trying to like focus in, smaller budget, more contained story, fewer characters, all of that. And then Truth About Charlie is him like staying at the same budget level with like a movie star he doesn't totally know what to do with.
Exactly.
Who's kind of misplaced. I was also talking with Sims right before this about like this being part of that weird, much like Scorsese's Cape Fear, where it's like a remake of one movie that's also kind of their homage to another movie.
Definitely.
Where it's like, let's remake Cape Fear in the style of Night of the Hunter.
Right.
And this is, let's remake Charade in the
the
style
style of, like,
of
early
Shoot the
Truffaut.
Piano
Right.
Player.
Right.
Let's talk a little Wahlberg.
I guess we talked about him on The Happening. Have we done other Wahlberg movies?
I think,
Stuff.
but
Planet of the
contextually,
Apes.
Well, we did Planet of the Apes.
he wasn't like the other thing
Will
on
Smith-
IMDb is that it was supposed to be Will Smith. That's
Right.
who he wanted
It
to
was
do.
going. I think it was not just supposed to. It was going to be Will Smith. Will Smith and
It
Tandy
was
Newton.
greenlit as a Will Smith
Obviously,
movie.
Tandy Newton. It was in Beloved and is this sort of exciting new star.
Has been in Mission Impossible 2 at this
Right.
point, but
So-
Beloved was kind of her big breakout.
Yes. And then Ali, which was a monster shoot that went way too long. Will Smith couldn't do this. Wahlberg comes in at the last minute, which is really crazy. It's also just crazy. But that's why I wanted to talk about Wahlberg. To imagine how he in 2001, a studio would be like, yeah, he's a good sub for Will Smith. Like, that's fine. Mark Wahlberg, he'll be great.
But it's that thing that I always find so fascinating where, like, when someone has their movie star breakout and people haven't quite figured out what makes them a movie star yet, there's sometimes this hope that like maybe they're Tom Hanks, maybe they can do anything.
Well, also,
maybe they can apply that.
We see that so often now,
Right.
with
Right.
90% of like male stars.
and then it takes like 5 years for them,
to find their lane,
circle
yeah.
back. Either they fall off or they circle back and they go, "Don't worry, I figured out why you liked me the first time.
Yeah.
I'm now going to
But
stay."
then with Mark Wahlberg, you have to imagine that Paul Thomas Anderson is like, well,
True,
I
yes.
made Boogie Nights.
Yeah.
He was wonderful. Or right,
He's a pro,
like,
right.
And
yeah.
then he goes to PTA and he's like, "Man, Will Smith dropped out. Who should fit this part?" And he's
Right.
like,
He
"Hey, man."
seems bankable at this point. He's a known dude,
So
but
obviously he's
yeah.
a musician, as we all know. You know.
Marcus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a model. And He makes Fear.
Famously, not famously enough. I feel like people don't talk about enough from his modeling days. 3 nipples.
3 nipples.
He has
That's
3
true,
nipples.
yes.
He has a
I
little
believe he
third
still
nipple.
does, yes. Which is funny considering that he was
He's
so often shirtless.
shirtless in all these movies now.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
never know.
The scene where he's shirtless in this movie is a little bananas.
It's hilarious how they play that in the trailer because you're
Yes.
just like, oh, they're about to have sex.
Right.
And in
Yeah.
the movie, it's just like he got wet a little bit.
Yeah.
a few raindrops on him.
But I feel like 96, 95 he has Basketball Diaries, 96 he has Fear, and it's like, oh, a lot of energy coming off of it. Maybe he's more serious than we thought.
Right.
He's so good in Fear.
Basketball Diaries was, he's proving he's a real actor.
Right.
And then Fear was, he's playing against type. He talked about they didn't want him to play that
Scaring,
part.
right.
He worked really hard on it. It showed more range. And then Boogie Nights is obviously the slam dunk. Because up
Big
until that
hit,
point, I
critically
think
acclaimed.
he was viewed as bargain basement DiCaprio.
Right. And this is a role that was sort of intended for DiCaprio, and he's taking it.
Right.
And, whatever. Obviously, that's a lot. And that's how I feel like you have. Then he works with David O. Russell on Three Kings.
Mm-hmm.
He works with James Gray on The Yards.
He finds a couple of filmmakers who really know how to use him in a row.
Right. And then
Yeah.
he's in The Perfect Storm, which I think he's pretty good in. I mean, that movie has all these great actors with beards, and they're all just sort of grizzled. And
Everybody's fine in that
everyone's
movie.
fine.
Yeah.
And that movie's obviously about
But it's
the waves.
a huge fucking hit.
It's a huge hit, which is crazy that it was a huge
It was
hit.
such a big hit.
It's such a grim movie, and it's really long.
and the
Does
premise,
that movie probably, does that even play on TNT anymore? Like, does anyone...
It should.
it felt like for 10 years that was the TNT movie.
It's just crazy that it's an 130-minute movie, and the entire premise is like there was such a bad storm that this big fucking wave killed a fishing boat, and like that's the whole movie. And yet,
Is there a rescue attempt in it? I mean, does any like I can't-
you got
you're
Diane
cutting to
Lane,
Diane Lane
right?
on
Yeah.
the horn, and Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio is on a boat trying to get him.
I just remember this point at which hopelessness like sinks
Exactly.
in, and you're just like, oh, they're all going to
That's
die.
And the
also
first
kinda
half
nuts
is them
was-
being like, "Should we go fishing?"
Yeah.
And like they do it, and then at the end it's like, yeah, and then they got drowned, and that was that.
But it was also
Summer blockbuster of
And people are
2001.
like,
Fourth of
gotta
July.
see it. Yeah,
that was
right.
like a 4th of July summer blockbuster,
Like a real blue collar blockbuster.
But I remember that being like a weekend where they were like, "Oh, this is a massacre." You got 5 wide releases on 4th of July. Like there was like a lot of shit. They all hit different audiences. No one knew what was going to rise to the top. And then Perfect Storm just like fucking knocked it out.
It was
Like
a
I
big
want to
hit.
say it was The Patriot, which everyone assumed was going to be the blockbuster.
Shaft,
Perfect
X-Men.
Storm, Shaft. I know Rocky and Bullwinkle came out that same weekend. It was like weird, and then Perfect Storm just like knocked it out. And I imagine after that,
182 domestic
Huge.
in 2000.
Huge.
Is for a blue collar, special effectsy drama.
but when a movie's
Patriot is the same weekend as is Rocky and Bullwinkle, which is crazy.
Thank
and
you.
Shaft is, newish, and Me, Myself, and Irene had come out.
because I feel like
Next
X-Men
week
comes
is
out
Scary
later.
Movie.
Yeah.
X-Men is the week after that.
Crazy stacked. It like rises to the top. It outgrosses all the films that you just mentioned.
Right, it does.
And then I think everyone had been waiting for Clooney to like achieve the level of stardom
Right.
that they wanted, that they saw for him. And he immediately after that is like, I don't want to do this shit. He doubles down on Soderbergh. They do Ocean's 11 the next year at Warner Brothers.
Right.
But I imagine that
Well, because, he must have been in a water
This was
tank. and it
also
must
a
have been
period
miserable.
where Wahlberg and Clooney were really tight.
They do
Yeah.
Three Kings and Perfect Storm
and
back
then
to back.
Wahlberg, I believe, was supposed to play Brad Pitt's role in the
Correct.
Ocean's
Yes, he was.
movies.
He
And
absolutely
then-
was. Yes.
he was.
And then that was like the end of that honeymoon.
But like Perfect Storm is the last movie like that Clooney ever does.
Is that true? Yeah, I guess so.
Right? I
He
mean,
never does like a studio.
The only thing
epic
that's arguably
blockbuster.
close to that again is Tomorrowland, which comes 15 years later and
And
is
he's
a
only in half
wildly
of it
different
anyway,
film, and he's
right.
only in half of it. But it's that bizarre thing where you go like, for how big Clooney is, it's the 3 Oceans movies, it's Batman and Robin, which was a disaster, and Perfect Storm.
And like The Peacemaker.
But those are his only 5 movies that make $100 million. The Ocean's Trilogy, Batman and Robin, and Perfect Storm.
Is that it?
Right?
He didn't get like Up in the Air. No,
no.
probably not. Or,
like that's like 80. Michael Clayton's like 50. I believe those are his only $500 million grosses.
Gravity.
I forgot about Gravity.
You forgot about Gravity.
I forgot about Gravity. Which is why I'm always floating to the top.
Spy Kids 3D Game Over, if you want to include his role in that. And
I would
Spy
not.
Kids.
He has
Spy
one
Kids
shot.
movies.
He plays the president of the United States in the Spy Kids franchise.
That would be it.
South Park. If we're going
Well,
there, then-
South
Did do
Park
it
made 52.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't do that.
It did. I think it probably
comparably
didn't cost
did
much,
great,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah.
But
he's funny in South Park.
Warner Brothers was Clooney's home studio for a long time. You imagine post Perfect Storm, they're like, great, now we can put you in everything. And he focuses up and he's like, nope, I'm using my star power to get the things I want made.
Right.
And Wahlberg starts to present himself as like, I guess we go to number 2 on the call sheet. That's the guy we're going to groom into being a movie star. They had just tried placing him in Planet of the Apes in a role he's not right for.
So he's in Planet of the Apes.
Right.
Burton, though, working with a big director. He also does Rockstar.
Of course.
Produced by George Clooney.
Stephen Herrick movie, I believe.
This is so funny. I completely forgot that they were like best buds.
In which he gets his nipple pierced, but not his third.
Not his third.
Not his third
Yeah,
one. He
real
got
missed
number 2
opportunity
pierced.
there.
Right.
We'd be talking about
Could have
Rockstar
had
much more
3.
frequently.
Right, we would be. Rockstar is like Boogie Nights at 5%, where it's like, because it's the same, where he's like, I want to be a rock star. I can do it. And they're all like, you will never do it. And he does
Like
it.
loosely based on a true story.
Yes.
All that.
And then Invincible. I want to
Well,
be a
that's
football
later.
player. No one lets me
That
throw
was
the
quite a bit
pigskin.
later.
That's
But I'm saying
06.
the
that
3
movie
movies
is low key kind of great. Like that movie is like a really fun, just dumb nuts like movie you see at a bar.
Another weird Disney thing that just doesn't happen anymore.
It's
Where
on
like
Disney Plus.
once a year, Disney would just make a $30 million sports drama with a big movie star who was relishing the opportunity to tell a small human story.
Can you tell me
Was
the? Sorry, go ahead.
McFarlane USA, the last one of those.
Yeah, and that movie,
It's great.
honks.
It's really good.
David,
I've never
McFarlane
seen it.
USA
It
honks.
honks. It
Disney
honks.
Plus, gotta watch
Can you
it.
tell me the director of Invincible?
Well, he's a cinematographer, right?
Yeah, he made one other movie.
The Point Break remake. Is his name Erickson Core?
That's right.
Well,
It's just a wild
Well
name.
done.
Yeah.
Erickson Core.
yeah. Ooh, David.
What's up?
Oh, it just got cold in here. Do you notice that?
Must be something in the atmosphere.
The thermostat just went down.
So many. It's always just the name with you. What's going on?
I'm the ghost.
Of
Dan Candyman.
he's dead.
Who can sell some flowers
Apparently not you if you're deceased.
even when he's dead?
What's up, Dan? What happened last we spoke? You were alive.
Yeah, I had a cerebral hemorrhage.
God,
The point is,
I'm so sorry, Dan.
look, I've worked some jobs for the sake of working.
Sure.
But Books is a company I love so much
Mm-hmm.
that I'm willing to haunt people in the afterlife to tell them about the great offers that they have.
Well, especially look, Valentine's Day's coming up,
Of course.
and it's a stressful holiday.
And you know what else
because-
is coming up? Can I just say it?
Go ahead.
Valentine's Day.
Sure. And just because she said she didn't want anything for Valentine's Day doesn't mean she doesn't deserve anything.
Right.
And what if you could just use a very simple, easy to use company, ships you a nice old box. What's in the box? Flowers. Where do you put them in a nice vase? There you go. Bob's your uncle.
You don't have to be Brad Pitt asking what's in the box. You know what's in the box. Some flowers.
And I don't know, like now you've crossed into the other side.
I have.
You're a part of the.
And by the way,
another
it's
dimension.
great. No spoilers. You're going to love it. You in particular are going to love it.
A lot of trains.
I can't tell you. No spoilers.
All right, Dan. I just want to ask:
Please, anything.
have you retained a sense of smell?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because if you bought flowers from the grocery store, they really don't smell like anything, right?
Yeah. No, they smell
But these
terrible.
books,
Ugh.
the difference is striking.
Oh.
They actually smell floral.
Yeah.
So they've got
Real
over at
nose
Books,
on this thing. Yeah.
Over at Books, and it's spelled Bouqs.
Kind of like a
short for bouquets.
right, but also sort of like a fancy ghost.
They got a great Valentine's Day deal going on now. Okay,
And also, I mean, let's say it, a great Valentine's Day deal if you're a single lady on
Yeah,
Valentine's
sure.
Day.
And
And
now-
also a pretty good Valentine's Stand deal. Which is a holiday that I created, Valentine's Day, and for if you're Dan and you're still single, even in the afterlife, and you want to celebrate with some flowers.
Well, not everyone needs roses. You might not prefer that. So they've got, bouquets. They've got sweet treats. They've got plants. They've got succulents, other gifts like that. They have blooms that start at $39. They're nationwide. They offer next as well as same-day delivery.
That's pretty wild.
And they even have flower subscriptions. And plus, they partner with the world's finest eco-friendly farms. Flowers are sourced directly. They arrive fresher. They live longer. I got some flowers. Griffin here got some flowers.
Oh, yes, I did. Thank you very much for that.
2 bunches of flowers. Put one in the living room, one in the kitchen or dining room.
Okay, well, now that's tiptoeing into humble brag territory.
And
you have both rooms?
Yeah.
In New York City? In this economy?
You've been a little nicer. So you can get 25% off your order from the Books Company. Go to Books.com/check with code check. That's BOUQS.com/check. Books. It's great. They got flowers. But he also, so Truth About Charlie is his Rockstar follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
So he's coasting on that. I feel like Rockstar actually probably made its money, right?
It did pretty well.
And post this, he has The Italian Job, which is sort of a surprise hit.
Yeah.
He has I Heart Huckabees, which is probably his best performance.
I agree.
He has the Four Brothers Invincible Double Punch, which are both kind of cruddy but profitable,
solid on base
thriller
or hits. Yeah.
And then he has The Departed in the Oscar nomination.
Wow.
Which
followed by Transformers, which is where we get to he's kind of been that version of Mark Wahlberg ever since.
But then there's also that run leading up to Transformers where he's kind of golden, making junky mid-budget thrillers.
He sort of
he has that run of Contraband.
He alternates between
Two
what
Guns.
you're talking. He's got
which all
Shooter,
do really well.
Max Payne. And I'm jumping Contraband, Broken City, Two Guns, Lone Survivor, right?
Because Contraband, Two Guns, and Lone Survivor all do really well.
Sure. I don't know if Two Guns did amazing. They
did
okay.
80. Yeah. Contraband did 80 in January.
You also have We on the Night, which he's great in. He goes back to James Gray. The Lovely Bones. Everyone likes to forget that movie existed and he was the star, but
he replaced Ryan Gosling.
Yep. You have The Other Guys, which is him exercising the comedy muscle.
So good,
he's very funny in that. And you have The Fighter, which is his passion project
he's great in.
I would still say I Heart Huckabee's Departed, that's maybe his best work. But The Fighter is his best movie star performance.
And his earnestness really pays off in spades in that.
It's the best fit for what he wants to do on screen.
The Departed thing is still so wild because it is one of the few examples of what is truly just a pure supporting performance.
Right.
So often supporting actor is the second lead of the movie who maybe has about as much screen time as the main lead of the film.
Right.
Or it's someone who has
have to talk him into that movie.
He didn't want to do it.
He was like, "Get the fuck out of here!
Right.
I want to play
because
the Leo
of the scale
role."
of it.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
And they
his
had to
ego.
be you should work with Martin Scorsese, and this is a very fun role that you.
He
can
talks
do
about his
stuff
agents
with.
kept on just breaking him down to do that movie. But that's the other thing is the other kind of supporting performance that gets nominated is someone just knocks out 2 or 3 scenes. They come
the
in,
William Hurt in History of Violence.
they take over the movie.
Right.
Whereas Wahlberg is always the 4th or 5th most important character in any given scene he's in that movie.
Yeah.
But he's just throwing fastballs the entire time.
Anytime he's on screen, it's just a joy.
It's electric.
And also he does finish the movie. He shoots Matt Damon in the head.
And that kind of
there's weirdly that it is satisfying.
And it revives his leading man career. Then the other crazy thing is Departed did so well and they were like, well, how do we make a sequel for this?
They were going to do a Wahlberg sequel. Right.
And Moynihan wrote the Wahlberg sequel and Scorsese wanted to direct it and they said Mark Wahlberg can't carry this movie.
Oh, that's bizarre. I don't know.
So clearly no one knew what to do with him in 2002 and they still don't.
It's just such a weird star career. And you're right that now, yes, he's sort of in that Transformers or Peter Berg movies.
Right.
That seems to be all he
family
does.
comedy.
Or Farrell. He likes Farrell, Berg.
Well, who's the director of
Instant Family? That guy.
Yeah.
Anders.
Yeah.
Right?
Sean
Anders. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's making films with him and Peter Berg and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
And people have said I haven't seen Instant Family, but people said that's actually a
I've heard that
perfectly charming movie.
Charming.
Right. So what's he got? He's got a bunch on deck. Wonderland.
Is
that a Peter Berg?
That's a new Peter Berg movie.
Yep. It sounds like. I mean, you said that title, and I knew
But
it was a
listen to
Peter
this.
Bergman.
An ex-felon named Spencer returns to Boston's criminal underworld
Of
to
course.
unravel a twisted murder conspiracy.
As
I'm
one
like,
does. David
Sounds all right to me.
is leaning in with
You
excitement.
telling me it's coming out in March?
On Netflix.
Oh, that sounds like
It
such
is
a
Netflix.
March
It's
release.
a Netflix. Okay. And then he's making something with the director of Monsters and Men. It's a movie called Good Joe Bell.
Yeah,
Oh.
I read that script. It's about a father who his son was killed in a hate crime, so he walks across the country to just educate people about
Weird.
compassion, and it is a true story. And
Connie Britton is in it. It looks like I don't know.
Interesting.
So
the
that
script
seems
was-
more
the script was
prestige.
written by Larry McMurtry. And
Yes,
Diana
yes.
Oh,
Smith.
wow.
And then
That's kind of a weird Wahlberg.
and
It's a
then
good
he-
part for him, though.
Really?
Yeah, it's like it's like a blue collar guy who was like super homophobic until he found out that his son was gay.
He's kind of a good part for Wahlberg.
Yeah,
where you're
that's
like,
kind
I
of a
can see
good part
that.
for Wahlberg.
And then he's got this big fuck off Antoine Fuqua action movie called Infinite with Chiwetel Ejiofor and I don't know.
Is it a sci-fi thing?
Man discovers his hallucinations or visions from past lives.
Excuse me, I am all
Sounds pretty
in
good.
on that.
It's
I'll
coming
take
out
as
in
much of that as you
August.
got.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Coming out in August?
You coming out in
5
August,
stars.
baby.
I'm giving it an
It's
immediate
Paramount.
5. Oh, it's a Paramount August
in
release.
August. Oh boy.
Ooh, I'm burning with excitement here.
Anyway, so he's just going to keep going. And he at the top of his IMDb list, it's been there for years. The $6 billion man. One
Yeah.
day it'll happen.
He keeps on
Talk
shuffling
about a
them.
movie that has been teased for 20 plus
Who was the last
years.
director attached to that? Was it
I-
Guy Ritchie or?
No, it was the fucking Wild Tales guy.
Oh,
right?
that's right.
The director of Wild Tales. who has-
Damien's.
yeah.
Well, now Travis Knight is attached. I think Travis Knight's making like almost every film that's coming out in the next
Pretty
couple
much.
of years.
Or is at
that
least-
guy's been attached to fucking everything.
rumored for everything. At one point, Peter Berg was going to do it.
Yeah.
He keeps on getting different people attached.
Travis Knight is drinking from the Uncharted chalice right now, which seems to like just poison everyone's career. It's so stop trying to make an Uncharted movie.
Yeah.
It's one of those video games. You don't play video games, no. But like, it's just one of those video games where they're like, it's like Indiana Jones, and someone sees it and they're like, oh, this could be a movie. Yeah, that's its vibe.
Right.
It's trying to feel like a movie
That already
but
existed.
there's nothing to hold on to in it, that's not completely derivative. So like trying to make
Sure.
a movie out of it is just sort of like a waste of your time.
I also love the idea that they're like, oh, we finally came up with a good take. You know how this character is like in his 40s and he's like a really confident, sort of like rakishly charming scoundrel? What if we retrofit it into a Tom Holland franchise where he's a young man who is totally different from that character? We make prequels that never existed to how he became that guy. And it's like, that sounds like you're not making Uncharted.
It's a different movie.
That
That's what
sounds like
happens
you just
when
want,
you've done development
Right.
80 times on this.
you
damn
want Tom
thing.
Holland to find a treasure. You can do that.
Yeah. Anyway, good
Is,
Wahlberg talk, guys.
I don't play video games, but is Death Stranding, would I like that? Should I get a console just to play that game?
Probably. I mean, I feel like that might be your vibe.
It feels
When's
like
the last time you played a video game, though?
the last time I played a video game was with the director Aaron Katz,
Okay,
who
sure. Yes.
Humble
Cold
brag.
Weather,
was really into. I don't remember what game it was.
Gemini.
Yeah, Gemini. Right.
He's a
30
Gemini man, one
Yes.
could say.
30 minutes into playing whatever game it was we were playing, I realized my controller
wasn't
was
even
not
working.
connected.
Nice.
I thought I was playing, and I was
Nice.
just like, "Oh, this is interesting,"
Yeah.
and I didn't realize that the game was just playing.
Well, that's my.
That is a
my,
Kojima experience where
Yeah.
if you play Death Stranding, you're basically watching several 3-hour movies in the middle of your game.
My favorite kind of video game is a movie. I mean, I'm really considering getting Death Stranding. I have a PS4, but it would be my first video game in over a decade that doesn't star Mickey Mouse and or Legos.
Yeah, you've got your name.
I've been pretty narrowly.
I went away for the weekend with David Ehrlich, and he'd been playing it to write about it, and he was, once in a while, he'd just be like, and then like there's this baby that you carry around in a mobile womb that'll give you a thumbs up, and I'm like, there it is? Like, how does that slot into what you just told me about how this game works?
Sounds like it honks.
It's like as soon as they anything without
Really going in.
without narrative or goals sounds great to me. Like,
Yeah.
like
I think you have to like go around and deliver Amazon packages and also like reconnect the internet.
Yeah.
that's what I've heard. Yeah,
Yeah.
And
David.
Sounds so good.
But also you
But
make pea
David,
bullets. Yes.
Is there a designated honk button?
Yeah,
Can you honk? Does the game let you honk?
We guess we're
it's like a
gonna
cheat
need
code,
honks.
the honk code.
We need a honk.
Great joke, Rachel. 10 comedy points.
So George Clooney should have played this part.
Well, this
He'd
feels
be
like
better.
an obvious. If you're going, oh, it's a remake. Cary Grant originated the
He
role.
was your debonair guy, right?
Yeah.
That was Clooney's. He's your salt and pepper Mr. Debonair, and instead you've got this beret on Wahlberg. That it's just
The
like
beret and the turtleneck.
The beret that randomly shows up in one scene.
Does it fit more or less than Tom Cruise with the New Radicals hat and Vanilla Sky? I mean, I feel like that's the last time we've covered such
Tom
an insane
Cruise will
hat
wear
choice.
anything. Look, I just rewatched Eyes Wide Shut, and I forgot there's a scene where Tom Cruise is wearing UGG boots. Do you remember this?
No.
I don't remember him in the boots.
There's
Is
a
it when
scene.
he's at home? with
It's
Nicole
when he's at
Kidman?
home. He's like sitting down at the couch. It's before they're about to, have
Yeah.
their big conversation.
Sure.
And he's wearing like low cut, like low rise UGG boots. And I saw it, and I was just like, imagine the series of discussions, because everything in a Kubrick movie is at least talked about. That where like, is it Tom being like, I've got these furry boots, I love them. I'm at my most comfortable in them. My character should be wearing them.
Or is it that they present the UGG boots to Tom Cruise, and to him it looks like as much of a challenge as tying yourself to the side of an airplane?
Or Kubrick's
He's like, I can survive this.
Tom, wear whatever you want. I'm shooting the scene from the top of the bed up. And then like 3 weeks later, they've covered the entire, like he's like completely changed how they shot it.
I'm trying to. There's the only image of it available on the internet is incredibly small, but take a look. There he is in his Uggs.
Oh yeah.
Wow. That is crazy.
I don't even remember that. I mean, obviously that's like a production
Yeah.
still. That shot like is not in the movie.
He looks so comfy.
What kind of TV do they have in their fancy apartment?
Yeah, they've got like a little,
Circa
like
90
13-inch CRT.
Circa 98,
right?
yeah. Top of the line. Do you know
yeah, it's just-
one other random thing I know? They just announced yesterday, by the point you were hearing this, hopefully it'll be shooting, but the new Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
Yes.
And in the photo in a Hollywood Reporter, he looks like George Clooney. It's so weird.
PTA?
He's like evolved into George Clooney.
He's got the salt and pepper. He's a good looking guy.
He has gotten so fucking handsome. And every time he releases a new movie and does a new press tour, I become more jealous of how he looks. In every sense. I like how he dresses. I like how he carries himself.
He kind of has a Clooney
Does
grin.
it? Yeah, right? Yeah,
yeah.
look at that.
Yeah. That's a
And
good point.
I feel like there was something so like devilish about how he looked when he was young. Like it was like he was owning the l'enfant terrible thing.
Yeah.
And now he just looks like this fucking smooth, sophisticated gentleman.
it's also that joke about like it's great if you look like a character in your movie, like you look
Totally.
like a supporting character. In your
Totally.
movies. That's a good vibe to go for.
Yeah.
He always has the period haircut.
Yeah.
Oh, love it.
He was like, when my wife and I first got married, he was like on her celebrity cheat list. But then at a certain point,
That's how you know you married the right person.
certain
That they
point-
want to fuck Paul Thomas Anderson.
at a certain
That's
point,
what
like,
I'm looking for in a
celebrity
wife.
cheats like stop being cool at a certain point.
Yeah,
in
I
your
think
career.
it's like a cute idea, and then you're like, oh, actually,
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. This is terrible.
especially if you work in the movie industry.
Yes.
But The Truth About Charlie has Mark Wahlberg
Mhm.
with a big old beret on his head
Yes.
and a turtleneck, and he's Cary Grant.
And
That's about the worst hand he could be dealt. That's like a 2-7 in Texas Hold'em.
he's wearing the beret, and it feels like it's magnets at opposite sides. Like it should be flying off of his
He
head.
also puts it on so prominently, like in that one scene. He's coming down the stairs. He's just like he puts it on.
Yeah.
He really puts it on with a capital
and he's
T.
got like a 2-degree tilt on it, which is not enough. You need to tilt that beret more if you're going to sell it.
And then you have Tandy Newton, who is a British actress, who, apart from Beloved, she was Sally Hemings in Jefferson in Paris. That was like
Besieged, that Bertolucci movie.
That's
before
right.
this, I think.
But then Mission Impossible 2 is the big thing because it felt like Cruise saying, like, here, I found
also
a
good in,
new major leading lady.
Gridlocked.
Oh
Never saw
yeah,
it.
she was good in that.
That's a great movie.
Right, but that was the Mission Impossible thing, and that movie was such a big hit that they were like, I guess he's like extended his star power to her. Right. And Beloved, I remember everyone being like, this is a breakout. This is going to be Best Supporting Actress performance.
It was too weird. Like her performance is
Right.
great, but it's so, like she's talking in the ET voice for like the first half
The
of the
movie
film.
and the performance are
Yeah.
too weird, and it didn't sort of translate to her. But it makes sense that Demme must have loved working with her.
Totally, yeah. And I mean, this movie was designed like he was like, what can I make with Tandy Newton?
And she's such a good character actor, and I feel like her best performances come out of that character actor vein, but her natural presence is so classic movie star. It is that weird thing where, like, when you see interviews with her, you're like, I understand how you could go, oh, maybe she's the next Audrey Hepburn. But then I think if you
She's so striking.
if you ranked the
Much
best
like
Tandy
Audrey Hepburn.
Newton performances, they're mostly the ones that play against that type.
What would you rank among her best performances?
I mean, I think she's great on Westworld.
Yeah, she is.
I think this is maybe a controversial opinion, but I think she's phenomenal in W. I really like her Condoleezza Rice.
Oh, I forgot about that.
She's good. I mean, that movie is.
I would have nominated
so
her
weird.
that year. I think she's the one performance that totally works in that movie. It is funny that this movie has her and Lisa Gay Hamilton, who was Vice's Condoleezza Rice. You have a standoff of the two Rices.
Two races.
She
She is good in Crash, which was
very
obviously a
good.
big, awards nominated.
and she
performance.
wins the BAFTA for that and doesn't get nominated for any other.
Well, the
award.
Oscars' relationship with Crash is so bizarre.
because
because
I'm feeling Freudian slip.
You know what I mean? Where they gave a Best Picture, but also like it's sort of weirdly undernominated, considering they obviously liked it. Like
It's the
Dylan was the only nominated performance, and they didn't even nominate Paul Haggis, or did they?
They-
No, I-
They did. He got
Yeah.
director and one screenplay.
He won screenplay. He didn't win.
It also is the only movie to win Best Picture and not get nominated at the Golden Globes, right?
Something like
It didn't even get a Best Picture nomination. It won.
It just came
Spirit
came-
Awards a
it
year
came
before.
late. Yeah, right,
Yeah.
right. Such a weird. Anyway, she is good in that.
Now I want to look at.
She's had a lot of really unfortunate
Yes.
roles.
A lot of very things like Pursuit of Happiness.
love interest in Norbit is tough.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
really tough beat.
And then
Yes.
she took time off
Yeah.
for her family. And then when I was watching
She's married.
Dumbo,
She's married to the director of Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again.
okay,
And her child is in Dumbo.
which
as
like
you were-
I didn't connect at first, but the whole time I was like, where have I seen
This
this
kid
young
looks
actress
familiar,
before?
right.
I've seen her in a million things. And I was like, oh wait, it's because she
I'm
looks
just
exactly
looking,
like
Run,
her
Fat
mom.
Boy, Run. Like there's a lot of
I
weird.
mean, Norbit is just it's like the definition of a truly thankless, like
Yeah.
sort of girlfriend role where it's like you're not allowed to be funny.
She
you
falls in
only
love
have
with
to be nice.
Norbit?
Your love interest is Norbit.
He's not a person. Like, Norbit does not behave as a human does. And she's like doing this Herculean task of every scene having to convey, I think I want to fuck Norbit. That's her character motive. I love imagining her calling over like director Brian Robbins and being like, so what's my motivation in this scene? He's like, you just, you're really considering whether or not to fuck Norbit.
You're into Norbit. And then when she's on Westworld, it was a little bit of that sort of like, oh, right, of course, she's
She
very
was.
talented. Like, yeah, why haven't we been
Has
putting her
she
in
been
more
nominated
things?
for an Emmy or anything?
She won an Emmy.
She won an Emmy, okay.
the Emmy last
For
year.
season
Great.
2.
Great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yep. Which was great, and it did feel a little
Chronicles of Riddick. That felt like another like, oh, she's going to be in a big franchise.
like, what a weird movie.
That movie is worth talking about someday.
Yes, it is.
Well,
I really would love to
I mean,
talk
it's the
about those
miniseries.
Chronicles.
It's the miniseries I'm always pushing for. That
The
we
Diesel,
do the franchises of Vin Diesel.
Yeah.
You do the Riddicks, the Fast and Furious, and the Triple X.
I think Twohy is a director you could do.
you could kind of do him.
You know, you've got The Arrival, which is kind of a weird movie. Sort of Fat
Got some
Charlie
fun
Sheen.
stuff,
Yeah.
Fat Charlie Sheen.
Then you got Pitch Black. Below, I've never seen.
That's the submarine movie with Zach Galifianakis. Yeah.
Zach Galifianakis. I saw that. I have no memory
And then
of
A
him being in
Perfect
it.
Getaway, which is good.
Yes.
And like that's like a
Which-
like really robust thriller.
Yeah. I believe Roger Ebert said it honked. I'm sorry. The late, great Roger
I have
Ebert
to
said
make
it
a
honked.
designated honk button.
Yep.
for
Yes,
this episode.
please. Submission accomplished.
So I guess we're gonna do Twohy. So
yeah.
everyone gets
And then
that.
Riddick is insane.
Yeah.
The third Riddick movie is.
You mean
bananas.
Riddick : Rule the Dark?
What? It was not called Riddick Rolled the Dark.
They did that for like DVD
Really?
or maybe European releases or something.
Wow.
Anyway, so you got those two guys, and then you have this Demme-esque collection of character actors and former collaborators
Ted
and
Levine,
the French
Lisa
New Wave
Hamilton.
luminary, right?
Yes.
that he's thrown into the mix, right? You have like Lisa Gay Hamilton, Ted Levine, Tim Robbins.
Having not watched Philadelphia, is Ted Levine in that?
no,
He's
he
not.
could be.
Is
So
this?
he just went from silence to this. He didn't do.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
is
those might be the only
this
two.
the only Demme movie without Napier?
Levine's also in the Manchurian Candidate. It might be. I'm not sure. I mean,
I thought I saw Napier in the hotel at one point.
maybe
Yeah.
he got
And-
cut out.
Well, he's not
Yeah.
Rachel getting married.
Well, right. He was,
Does Napier's run end at Philadelphia?
let me.
Because I'm like, he's not in Beloved,
No,
right?
he's in Manchurian Candidate.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. Well, I was
yes.
worried I was never going to see his face again.
Yeah, he's in Beloved, playing Angry Carney,
Of course.
and he's in Manchurian Candidate. But he is not in this one. Maybe he was cut out, as you say, right? Maybe he had some. You've got Jung Hoon Park, who I feel like Demme had seen in that movie Nowhere to Hide, I think, and was like, "You seem great. I'm putting you in my movie." Well, because there's a lot of those sorts of casts.
In the original charade, which I want to talk about for a little bit, you have this group of men who are hunting down Audrey Hepburn, and it's like James Coburn and George Kennedy, and it's like these classic sort of like weird Hollywood character actor heavies and like oddball energy dudes. And then in this, he makes it this incredibly strange group. Yeah. Because like Levine,
he kind of likes them. I feel.
Well, that's the thing.
He totally likes them.
Levine is the only
likes
one,
everyone.
Levine's the only one who's kind of playing it in a straightforward way.
He's a little scarier, right?
And only because he feels like he's dying in every
scene.
scene.
Right. So even he has to put a sympathetic twist on the one scary guy to make it like, but this guy's really suffering. And the rest of them are kind of nice.
And he has that, and probably the key point in the scene, or key point in the movie is the tango sequence where everyone's just dancing together and having a great time sharing information while Anna Karina's singing.
It's the best scene
and that's
in the
a
movie,
great scene, best scene in the movie. And that's where you feel like this is the movie he wanted to make. Right. And you also are like, he just likes all these people. He just wants to hang out with all these people.
Well, it's such a
He's
weird
taking the
thing.
bones of charade, but there's not really a villain. And no one gets too mad about the identity switches. You know, it's kind of like one brief, it's like, come on, and then they're kind of over it.
Which is why the one scene that I feel like really probably doesn't work is the standoff at the end, because it's like no one really cares.
Yeah, everyone's fine.
And I love that it ends with just like them all just like laying down their guns, like, none of us, we don't really care. But it goes on for so long.
Like you assume Robbins is going to end, like he shows up, he's Tim Robbins. You're like,
playing the
he's
Walter
the
Matthau role.
I know, right.
It's so bizarre.
Okay, Robbins, he plays creeps, he plays villains.
Right.
Like, he'll be right. It'll turn out he's bad. And yes, it does turn out he's bad. But instead of him dying or, what, they're just like, whatever.
Until he dies in the end credits in like a throwaway gag.
Classic Demme end credits thing. Where he just puts plot in the end
credits. Puts a Hannibal Lecter gag.
Yeah.
And he has like an Anne Ramsey looking mother like smiling into a freeze frame as like the last shot of the movie.
I mean,
it's such a weird movie.
Because charade is like this sort of, it's viewed as like a light Hitchcock, like a Hitchcock that Hitchcock never made sort of classic, where it's Stanley Donen, who is much more of like a lighter, more souffle filmmaker.
Sure.
And is such a mood guy. And a filmmaker I love, but doing a film that's sort of unusually plotty for him. But the thing that's so fun about charade is it's got this very convoluted like puzzle box narrative. But the movie is kind of flippant about like, but what you're really here to see is movie stars.
Exactly.
And you're here to see Europe. And you're here to see the locations.
It's very location-based.
And it's a movie that does a great job of, it is so confusing. It is so impossible to follow on a scene-by-scene basis. But the movie kind of reassures you, like, don't worry. We'll make sense of it for you in the end. In the meantime, just like float on this energy.
And everyone is having a ball in it.
Totally.
Like, they're all chewing the scenery, just having a blast. And I think everyone was probably doing that on The Truth About Charlie as well. But they're not actors they're not the same type of actors, and so it doesn't work the same way.
And it's also
the audience doesn't have that relationship.
Like
with
charade is from like the tail end of a certain type of movie star led film, where like the movie star is the franchise,
exactly,
and people are like commenting on their own personas. Charade has a bunch of like weirdly self-knowing like fourth wall break jokes about their past films and their careers and their reputations and the age difference between them. And it's sort of like, this isn't reality. This is a Cary Grant movie. Cary Grant movies take place in their own alternate universe. Audrey Hepburn movies take place in their own alternate universe where their wattage transforms everything around them, and it's as if it were a musical, and it takes place in a fantastical land. And then Truth About Charlie is him taking that movie where the plot is already so difficult to follow, and then going like, I also want to throw into it the French New Wave, which was largely, let's take the skeleton of like a pot boiler.
But don't worry about plot so much.
Right. It's a girl, a guy, and a gun, but you mix it up, and it's not about that. It's about the riffs. And the playfulness isn't as much the actors, it's the filmmaking, and how the filmmakers are sort of deflating the self-seriousness of the pulpy material. So he's putting that level of playfulness onto a script that only really worked when it was playful in an entirely different way, and then hiring movie stars who haven't really figured out their movie star personas yet.
This is all true. I forgot to mention Stephen Delane. Sorry.
Yes. And then it's largely marketed as a pretty straightforward thriller. Like the poster looks like it could be any fucking generic, like that it could be Paycheck.
and the trailer as well.
Yeah.
It's got a bunch of posters too. You've got the one that's like the Eiffel Tower with stamps and a
That
dead
looks like the
body.
Manchurian Candidate.
If you go see this movie off of that poster, you walk out and burn down the theater.
Now,
right?
then they also had this one that's a little more lively and cute.
It looks
a little
60s
more
pop art.
charade-y.
It looks a little Saul Bassy.
I mean,
yeah.
the title itself is more fun than Charade, which is like
Right.
interesting. It's almost like the reverse of like when they did like Dial M for Murder, it became A Perfect Murder. They bland up the title, and this one's like, let's liven it up a little bit. Let's take it to the next level.
It's a little jokey.
And then, David, as I'm sure you know, in Britain, the posters are horizontal rather than vertical for whatever reason, right? Like they always had the subway poster that's
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Well, why would David know that?
Because I grew up in Britain.
Why would I know that?
Well, because you're a filmmaker who makes movies.
I know.
don't know.
I've been quite fond of the subway posters I've had for my films.
For the British subway posters,
I
right?
wish they would fit in my house.
Right, that's the thing. I feel like the British poster always has this different thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're not reacting to the fact that I grew up in Britain. It's the truth about
no,
David.
because it is the truth about David. There's something that Lowry just made me think of that's kind of embarrassing, and I'm debating whether or not to say it.
All right, well, you can think about that for a second, but I feel like this poster is it's very small. You guys can't really see it, but it's the epitome of everything is wrong. So,
It's two movie stars getting
you've
ready
got
to
two
kiss.
movie stars getting ready to kiss. That's fine.
It's sort of
Their
sepia
mouths
tones.
do not look like they're getting ready
They
to kiss.
don't look like they're anywhere near each
Yeah.
other, but whatever. Then you're at the top from Jonathan Demme, the Academy Award-winning filmmaker of Silence of the Lambs in Philadelphia. So you're like, oh, serious.
Can't read
Terrible
that. Can't read that.
expectations. Yeah.
And then the tagline is "Everybody has a secret," which is like not a tagline and also just sort of vague and mysterious, right?
Don't you love how they highlighted the word lie?
And
That's
truth.
so clever.
And
Charlie.
Truth,
Char
lie,
lie.
truth, lie.
Truth
And
and
then-
lie.
The billing is Mark Wahlberg, Tandy Newton, Christine Boisson, who plays
The
the
detective.
The commandant.
exactly, and Tim Robbins, and you're like, okay, the truth about Charlie, and then it has a lower card of like Anna Karina, Ted Levine, like,
Aznavour? Do they bill Aznavour?
No.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
Whoa!
I mean, so I'm just like, if I'm seeing that poster, I'm like, what the fuck is this movie? And I just don't see it. And then no one saw it. So
The embarrassing thing I was debating whether or not to say is I've come very close, and I'm still debating whether or not to buy a subway poster off of eBay. I have
You
no idea how
should.
I'd display it. I just think it looks really cool. I think it'd be the most narcissistic thing I could possibly put in my apartment.
Yeah, definitely get it.
Get it. Of course.
I have like the posters they made that are like the regular dimensions.
Mm-hmm.
But the subway one, it's like a cool format.
It is. It's like it's a very pleasing aspect ratio.
And there were like a couple of them that all.
Yeah, you should at least get it. Have the option. How much can it be on eBay?
Not
Yeah,
too
so
much.
You can at least have it in your closet and then make a decision to hang it later on.
I yesterday took a road trip up to Farmingdale, New York to buy 2 pieces of furniture from the set of The Tick that were being sold off as part of some weird auction.
Sure.
So I now own 2 chairs from the set.
Congratulations.
I'm like the biggest collector of Tick memorabilia from our show, and it's because they wouldn't give me any of this stuff for free.
Right.
You'll be able to make a suited follow-up.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's I'm going to self-produce a season
Yeah.
3. Yeah. David.
Yeah.
We've all heard of The Hustle,
Can't
Well-
knock it.
both the dance,
Sure.
and the Anne Hathaway Rebel Wilson film that burned up the bottom of the top 10, the box office last summer.
Good call.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
But what we don't talk about enough is the hassle.
Sure.
People do the hustle, but they don't want to do the hassle.
You're talking about inconvenient trips to the post office.
What else would I be talking about?
Yeah, I see.
What
I
else
see.
could I possibly be referring to?
No, this is the problem.
Sure.
It's just when you need to mail stuff out,
Yeah.
especially maybe en masse, you got to get a bunch of stuff sent out.
I'm stressed. I'm already stressed just having
Very inconvenient to have to leave your house, go to the post office, sort it out all
to. It's
there.
a hassle.
When there's a website called stamps.com, which is completely online and will save you time and money.
the interwebs, my friend.
Stamps.com, they bring all the services of the U.S. Postal Service right to your computer, okay?
Mhm.
So if you're a small office sending invoices, maybe you're an online seller shipping out products like Blank Check sometimes does.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a warehouse sending thousands of packages a day. It doesn't matter.
Like at Blank Check
Stamps.com,
Industries.
right, can handle it all with ease. You just use your computer. You can print out official U.S. postage 24/7 for any letter, any package, any class of mail, anywhere you want to send it.
You're getting 5 cents off of every first class stamp. And if that's not enough for you, you greedy person, get to 40% off shipping rates.
That's right. And once your mail is ready, all you have to do is hand it to your mail carrier, drop it in a mailbox. It's that simple, okay? So you got the discounted postage rate that you can't even get at the post office. It's a fraction of the cost of those expensive postage meters, and there's no equipment to lease and no long-term commitments. It's a no-brainer.
You can feel like Pee Wee Herman.
Yep. Go on.
Just handing packages straight to Reba the mail lady, not leaving the playhouse.
It's no wonder over 700,000 small businesses use Stamps.com.
It's obvious. It's a gimme.
So listen, right now our listeners can get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale without any long-term commitment.
Now, when you say right now, how long does the offer last? Like 2-3 minutes? Or can
No,
people
right
finish listening to the episode and then? Okay.
The offer is available. All you have to do is go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in check. That's Stamps.com, enter check. 4-week trial, free postage, and a free digital scale. No long-term commitment.
Do the hustle. Don't do the hassle.
Anyway, so I just feel like it's this weird jumble that it's for nobody.
It's for nobody.
In that
Except
same
nerds who are doing blank check filmographies.
like, 'cause, like we are all
Jonathan
excited.
Demme,
Like,
right.
like you watch that movie and you see that the woman in the black veil, and you're like, oh, who is that? And then we look it up and we're like, okay, that's the woman from La Dolce Vita
Right.
and
Right.
the Fellini movies. And you see her again at the end in that extended close up where Tandy Newton's walking past her.
She smiles.
And I'm just like,
so weird.
I'm like, that's what this movie exists for. So that we can sit here and be like, oh yeah, she was in that. I see. I get it. It's like
just like where you see Anya Sparta leaving the storage unit for 1 second. I was like, whoa, there she is.
But I just remember this being like released as like, oh, it was pushed back. It was sort of undated for a while. There's some weird Jonathan Demme remake that like Universal isn't putting out there. And then when the trailer and poster came out, everyone was like, this looks like a calamity. It made $7 million worldwide and completely disappeared from the public consciousness.
And it wasn't like, I feel like Demme usually, I mean, he was a Berlin favorite. You know, his movies were usually at film festivals. No film festival for this, even though it came out in October in like ostensibly sort of an Oscar-y
But it
slot.
felt like there were no award aspirations. It was a straight commercial play that they didn't even know how to sell.
And looking back at it now, there was like zero press because I can't find. I found that Charlie Rose piece.
Right, they must have done the absolute bare minimum on that.
It feels like everyone was trying to distance themselves from this thing by the time it actually came out.
Like the Manchurian Candidate was at the Venice Film Festival.
Yeah.
Usually
And
that was 2004. So
that's the following film. Yeah.
I feel like he probably, obviously had put a lot into Beloved and just like he's like,
and
I
that
just
had
need-
not worked commercially. Really.
I'm just gonna keep referring to this Charlie Rose interview because that's all I got.
Yeah,
but like
please.
he said, like he had a couple false starts in there, and that one of them was Hannibal, which he
Right.
was planning to do
Yes, I think
until he read the book.
Until he read it.
and
Yes.
threw it across the room.
He was hypothetically prepared to make
yes.
the
it made
follow-up.
total sense that you're
Right.
going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, Silence of the
Everyone
Lambs
was gonna
is
do it.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And
Why wouldn't you?
Look,
Right.
anyone else in his position would have probably done it. Not anyone else, but the majority of filmmakers coming off of
Would just
Beloved.
be like, sure, yeah.
Let me just
Let
go
me
back.
Go to the safe zone.
Guaranteed home run. I'll just fucking pinch my nose and make it. It is so telling that both Foster and Demme are the types of artists where they were like, I would rather not make it
And
than
it's
make
because
this.
he cared so much about
Yeah.
Clarice, which is what he says. He was like, I read it and I just like, he's like, I love Thomas Harris, and I told him I just don't.
I don't
I
like
can't
what you've done
accept
here.
what you've done to
They
the
pulled a
character.
Rachel. They threw their book across the room.
Do you think he or Jodie Foster were the first? Because they obviously both basically declined.
I think
like,
it
do
was
you think they declined
probably-
in tandem?
I imagine like the book, the manuscript was, the galleys were delivered,
Right.
with a courier waiting to take
Yeah.
them
Yeah,
back,
right.
and they both sat there and read them like on the same day.
I'd like to imagine they were on the phone reading it to each other,
Yeah.
trading off every other stanza.
Just being like, oh, it's pretty okay.
Good dick.
Nope. You hear they both heard each other throw the book
in
across the-
unison.
Yeah, exactly.
They harmonize.
and so I think he just wanted to. The other thing he said in that interview is he really loved the mad spirit of the original charade.
Sure.
And mad spirit is something you could also apply to his
almost
films.
all his 80s output.
Exactly. And so he's
especially.
like, let me just go do that again. And you look at, he said he was like very involved in the script, and which is, maybe that was like the biggest surprise.
Right.
Because I assumed he probably just got the original script, had some folks brush it up, and then was like, let me go do crazy, like panning through dialogue scene, camera tricks and things like that. And so the fact that he was as invested in the story as he said he was a surprise to me. But you look at the way he made it, and that's not surprising at all. You're like,
Yeah.
he just wanted to go make a film like that again. And I sympathize with that.
But it is weird. It's like he's using this as a vehicle to make his to do the kind of filmmaking he wants to do.
And he's like, the digital video stuff. Like he's like throwing formats out.
Yeah, I feel like that scene with Tim Robbins by the river was all done on HD.
Yes.
And there's
like
the
early
one,
90s HD.
Yes.
There's
And
like
then,
the one in the
Euro-
cab with Tandy Newton and Mark Wahlberg.
right.
That's all. Like,
And then the Eurostar thing, you know, where they're in
Yeah.
the train and like the camera's all shaky and
you're like, he's
grainy.
doing this 2 years before a Collateral.
Yeah, this is like Attack of the Clones.
But like a year after Ali, which has that really grainy digital stuff
Yeah.
when he's running.
Yeah.
Right.
It's very odd. It also
Yes,
is this
it is.
weird thing.
Fujimoto, as
yeah,
usual.
yeah.
It's his
Right.
whole crew is
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's also that thing of like in the, I feel like the late 90s, early 2000s especially, and this is sort of like the not the tail end, but a couple years later this kind of completely dries out. But Hollywood has not figured out how to perfect a franchise model yet. So few franchises actually work that the way that they can find kind of security in developing a property that feels field tested to them with a built-in audience is take a classic Hollywood film and remake it with really big movie stars of the moment.
Right.
And it feels like that's the kind of blank check you can get is whatever you want to do, if you can figure out how to attach it to a remake of a studio film from the 1960s and you can pick two people who are either major stars or on the rise, they'll give you like $40 to $60 million to do it.
Sure.
I wonder what the budget of the Psycho remake was.
Are you like me that you think that movie is kind of great?
I love that movie.
Yeah. Isn't it good?
Fun fact.
For let's see, 60 million.
The
Same
Nuts.
budget.
Nuts.
Jim Whittaker, who produced Pete's Dragon and working on a new film with him now, that was his first producing credit. And I was like, I hope you're proud of it. I hope you're proud of it.
What is his
is he?
takeaway?
He the thing he told me was that his big, influence as a producer on that film was Gus Van Sant wanted to make the shower tile green. He's like, Gus, it's got to be white.
That is bonkers. So that was the big thing he talked Gus out of.
I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that.
That
but
movie is so wonderfully strange.
It's
so great.
It's a piece of film criticism,
It is.
and
It is.
I in a way wish The Truth About Charlie was more of that in some ways.
Right. I mean, the thing about Psycho, though, that it has over a remake of Charade or a remake of almost any movie that exists is that Psycho is one of the most visually indelible
Yes.
movies ever
Very true.
made.
Mm-hmm.
So every copy is recognizable, and then any tweak, you're like, why'd he do that? Because there are so few tweaks.
Right.
But anytime he does one,
It
it sends a
jumps out at
shiver
you.
up your spine.
It
Well, it
presents
becomes like
itself to you as
Warhol's Empire.
Yeah.
It's such...
Where like anytime anything happens, it feels like a seismic event.
It is such a good movie. It is so strange. I feel like it probably almost plays better now that Vince Vaughn has tipped back to weirdo.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like,
For
'cause
sure,
at the
yeah.
time he was kind of this sort of like interesting dramatic actor. Then he goes full comedy, and it's like, it's so weird that he
Yeah.
played Norman Bates.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of like, actually, there was something to that.
Well, it's a good thing it won the Razzie Award
Yes,
for
it did.
Worst Director. Winky,
I hope he's proud of that.
Gus?
Yeah.
I feel like he has given so many interviews with so many different answers as to why he made it.
He
Like,
has,
it's
but I
almost
hope-
become this
I
thing
ho-
where he toys with people
Yeah,
about
I
it.
hope he's
Right.
proud of the Razzie. Like, I hope he's like,
Oh, I hope he
yeah.
displays the Razzie.
Yeah.
He has an Oscar. No, he doesn't have an Oscar.
He doesn't.
No, but he's got a nomination.
Got a couple noms.
No.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know what you mean.
I feel like the blatant references to the French New Wave are a way of saying like this is in communication with film history.
Right.
Totally.
We're having a conversation.
But it's a
here.
little bit too on the nose.
Yes.
You think when Charles Aznavour just shows up in a hotel room, materializes
Or
to
when he
sing?
plays the record and he's like, Aznavour, he's like, oh, shoot the piano
course
player,
I-
right?
of course I know shoot
Then
the piano
cut to
player.
footage of shoot the piano player.
Right. That he has to put the stars and directors of the film he's referencing.
Do you think he made him watch it and stuff? Like, I love
He must have,
imagining.
yeah.
Do you show movies for your crew and cast? Like,
It's so hard now. Like,
Is it?
we always try to, and this, on this last film, we did a kickoff where we were like, let's watch something that has nothing to do with.
Sure.
We always have the reference material that we talk about, but they're like, let's watch something that just gets us fired up about movies. So we watched American Movie, which was a
Cool.
great way to. But then we also watched Lost in La Mancha,
oh, sure.
and
So-
I was like, maybe that. We were afterwards, like, maybe we shouldn't have watched that
Right,
one.
right.
Yeah.
We're about to make a movie where an actor's on a horse.
yeah, that one's
Yeah.
close to the bone.
Yeah,
The little right.
exactly.
I just like the idea of Demme like being like Mark, Tandy,
Let's
Yeah.
all get together.
Lisa Hamley.
Yeah.
We're gonna watch Shoot the Piano Player and Charade back to back or what? I don't know. it's just fun.
We're gonna
imagining
go
Mark
watch.
Wahlberg
We're gonna watch
watching
the Agnes
shoot the piano
Varda
player.
oeuvre and
Yeah, we're watching the Gleaners and I. All right, get ready.
Well, it is that. I mean, I keep on harping on this, but it's the thing that I find so fascinating about this
cleaners.
movie.
It's such a tough life for these Gleaners.
The movie's best quality and its most confusing aspect is that, right, it's relying more on the playfulness behind the camera rather than the playfulness in front of the camera. And if movie stars are being that playful, you can kind of sit back and feel a sense of comfort and security and I'm in good hands even if I don't understand what's going on.
they're winking without winking.
I can coast on this. Whereas when the filmmaker's being that playful, if it's breathless and the plot doesn't really matter, you can vibe on that because you're not disoriented by how little you understand. Whereas this, when every scene, every character is redefining who they are, what their relationship is to everyone else, and what they're trying to get. Even I, having seen Charade probably 5 times,
Sure.
Charade is a movie that I love. I've weirdly seen it so many times just because I always watch it with other people. And it's one of those movies where if you ask me the day after I've watched it what it's about, I cannot tell you.
Right.
When I'm watching it, it makes sense in and of itself. And more than like a day away from a viewing, I cannot even remember the basic gist of it. And watching this, having seen Charade 5 times, not having seen this movie before, I kept on going like, what actually happens in Charade, a film I've seen more than most films?
And it's all the same thing. So this movie has more information.
Identical plot.
But-
Yes.
And they're like explaining things even more, but it's still harder to.
Right. Because you're like, something feels like it's being obfuscated for me here. Like there's
Right
something.
from the beginning.
You're
Yes.
being invited to pay attention to the plot more.
Totally.
You are.
And as a result, and the plot is also just as confusing.
Yeah.
We're not
So-
going to try and explain it
yeah.
on this episode because
No.
it would just be thankless.
I mean,
It's
Wikipedia.
impossible.
This is like the rare Wikipedia synopsis that doesn't try. Like,
No.
I
It's like,
went to
who
look at
knows?
it and I was like, huh.
Yeah, some bullshit happens.
I think there are a couple problems. One, Wahlberg is not great at changing his persona.
No.
So anytime it's like, it turns out I'm this guy, it seems like he's just the same guy and you can't really get a handle on it.
He has a base level earnestness
Yes.
where he is not above the material, which is so great in so many movies. But in this, you need someone who's sort of like Cary Grant, who,
Right.
or the George Clooney could do, where he's sort of like you were saying earlier, hey, everybody, you're in safe hands. I know what's going on. I'm going to be at the end of the movie pulling the rug out from under you, and it's going to feel great.
Well, there's
Whereas
also
You watch
Yes,
you watch
yeah.
the whole movie thinking, does Tandy actually know everything and that's going to be the twist?
Right.
Which is not the twist.
because
and
no
it's not
one
what
would
Charade
fall
is
for what
about.
he's selling.
Exactly.
No one's going to buy that.
So it's like, is there some final Tandy twist? But there's not really. And
No.
it's just like, okay. Oh, okay. I guess it was okay.
Well, right. In lieu of talking about the plot, I want to go a little deeper on these 2 performances specifically. So, like, the Cary Grant thing is so fascinating because, like, so much of the mythology of Cary Grant is he is a created ideal. He's Archibald Leach. That famous quote where he's like, everyone wishes they were Cary Grant, including me. You know, that he was sort of so knowingly and openly to the public, like, I have created a persona in quotes. It is a perfected character. You know, Cary Grant has as much to do with Archibald Leach as like Groucho Marx has to do with Groucho Marx. And so it means that even though he is not transforming himself every time the character reveals himself to be a different person, Cary Grant in and of himself is so much a facade that you accept that this guy is fake.
Right.
And that you're never going to get to the bottom of the layers.
Right.
The Wahlberg thing is the exact opposite, where he is so earnest and so incapable of playing outside of his range. He is so quintessentially who he is that there's something kind of nice about the fact that the movie does not make him work too hard to try to sell him as being anything other than what he is. That he always sticks out as a sore thumb. And as a counterpoint to Cary Grant, who is so confident, so smooth, so successful and seductive, that Wahlberg always feels like a guy who's trying a little bit too hard to sell this idea. And the best Wahlberg scene is the end of the movie where he goes to his weird office underneath the stairs, and you're like, this is this like dorky American guy who has completely failed for 2 hours to sell the idea that he belongs in Europe. That his office is like littered with literal footballs, and he's got a suit that doesn't fit him really well, and he's like some dork who like actually would be a spy rather than the kind of like slick James Bondy spy. That's pretty appealing. And it's pretty appealing, the scenes where it feels like it taps into that, where it's like he's almost a little too academic and studied in trying to be a charming, light person. The problem is you don't believe she would ever fall for it or that anyone would ever fall for it.
It does seem ridiculous.
That's why all the lines from the original film, like just them saying "I love you," you're like, what? Seriously? Come on.
He feels like the quarterback deciding to do the high school play. And you're like, he's pretty good considering.
Sure,
Yeah,
he's
you
got some,
give him credit.
screen
Right.
presence, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I will say when I saw the movie in 2002, I liked his performance a lot. I was a big, I was fully sold on Mark
You want to
Wahlberg.
believe in the future
I
of
just
Mark
loved,
Wahlberg.
I still like him.
Yeah.
One of the funniest things that's completely random is like when Ted 2 came out,
Uh-huh.
I was like, can't wait to see Ted 2. Like, I really like Ted 1. And my wife was like, you never saw it. And I was like, yes,
What are you
I
talking
did.
about?
I
So
said
Ted,
Ted 1's
we love
great.
it.
I love Ted 1. And then I was like, oh, wait, I haven't actually seen it.
You felt
You just,
culturally
like,
like
seen
you
the
had
I felt like culturally
trailers,
seen it. The
right.
trailers had made me laugh. And
Yeah.
I really like Mark Wahlberg. So I just assumed that I saw it and loved it.
That is,
So I wrote like a whole review of Ted 2 based on the premise that I had not seen Ted 1.
wow.
And had to like rediscover it.
Do you do it for Talkhouse?
Yeah.
Did you
That's so
ever
funny.
watch Ted 1?
I did.
Sure. Okay. Well, there you go. You got to it.
Yeah, I saw both of them.
Sure. Fair enough.
I would argue that Ted 2 has a pretty great premise, even if it doesn't know what to do with it.
We
Because
talked about Ted and Ted 2 too much on this damn podcast.
Ted 1 has no premise outside of the main hook. It's got no story. It's just a series of things happening for 2 hours, essentially. The idea of Ted 2 is, does Ted exist as a human being? Does he deserve human rights? He is a magical creature created by a wish. Should the government be able to view him as a sentient being? I think it's a pretty insane premise for a film.
I mean, it kind of goes into some of the stuff you've talked about with Forky.
Yeah. Our greatest movie star.
Do you like Forky?
I like Forky.
Oh, boy.
Wow. A very qualified like.
I did not think Forky justified the perfect ending that was Toy Story 3.
Wow.
So
So you're
for
just
me,
sort of like no sequel
For you, yeah.
necessary.
Toy
right.
Story 3, I saw it with the aforementioned John McGarry here in New York, and I was just like shaken to my core. I was like, this is the perfect ending to a franchise. I was willing to go into Toy Story 4
Yeah.
ready to have that franchise reignited, but I was like, you know what? I didn't need it.
Weird. I mean, yeah, because I'm obviously a Toy Story hyper fan, but I prefer the ending of 4, which I know I'm in a wild minority on.
Among the Toy Story hyperfans?
Yeah, also amongst everybody, I feel like even the people who like 4 prefer the ending of 3. But the Forky thing for me is just so robust, and I want Disney to start
Forky.
announcing that Forky's in other movies.
Sure.
That would be so good.
Right.
I want
do
them
it.
to be like Forky
You'll
is
do a
playing.
Forky?
If I make another Disney movie, I'm
Make
going to
Forky.
pledge right now. If I make another Disney film, I will put Forky in it.
Forky's going to be in that one.
I'm just waiting for them to be like, never mind, Javier dropped out of negotiations. Forky is playing King Triton in the Little
Is
Mermaid.
Javier Bardem playing King Triton?
As of now, Javier
Do you
Bardem
think-
is in aggressive talks to play King Triton.
What do you think?
He keeps wielding a
Wait,
trident.
so what do you think he's going to wear? He's not going to be shirtless.
No.
He'll have some
Right?
sort of.
He can't be.
He can't be. But then it's not King Triton. But he
King
won't
Triton
be.
is it's true. The chest is really where the authority
That's
comes
where the
from.
performance comes from. From
Right.
Kenneth. What's his name?
It's Kenneth Mars
Kenneth
as King
Mars,
Triton,
yeah.
which is so weird. The Nazi from the producers
Oh, sure.
is the voice of King Triton.
Glad he's the Nazi from the producer.
Anyway.
Yes.
I'm very curious what the
Me
garments
too.
will
And
be
you're
in
like,
Little
are
Mermaid.
they going to dye his hair white? Is he going to have a long white wizard beard? He must, right?
Not opposed.
Or is he going to be...
He might be beardless with white hair.
But could he do that?
I don't
There are
know.
certain things like
Legally?
Aquafina playing Scuttle.
We were
Great.
just talking
All
about
it. That's
this. All
fine.
about
Who's
it.
playing
But-
Flounder?
Jacob Tremblay, your man.
Ah, the Trem. I love him.
Our most consistently
Have
bankable
you-
movie
well,
star.
Dr. Sleep putting a dent in that.
Well, but he's not even advertised.
I know. Have you
If
seen
they
Dr.
put him
Sleep?
above the
He gets,
title-
eviscerated by.
It's a pretty brutal scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they
I
put him
have
above
to
the title, that
imagine-
movie would have opened to 80.
I have to imagine he wanted to. Like he was like, really murder me, right?
I
Like
think-
I haven't done that yet.
I mean, obviously, Mike Flanagan has his
guys.
his players, and
Yeah.
so he's just like, "Hey, Jacob, want to be in this?" And he's like, "Yeah,
He
whatever
was
you do."
he was thirst trapping Mike Flanagan, going murder me, Mike Flanagan.
I just feel like he's a risk taking actor who's like, I want to do something new. I want to be eviscerated by Rebecca Ferguson on screen in like a 10-minute sequence. That's really quite upsetting.
Fucking Tremblay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's maybe your finest piece of writing ever. And
Finest piece of writing ever.
if I had to be the one who chose what to submit for your Pulitzer bid,
That I'm not winning. Sure.
I would pick Jacob Tremblay is reviving the mid-budget studio film with his bare hands.
After Good Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good boys, great box office.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Okay, the Thandie Newton. What's weird about
Tandy or Thandy? Is it Tandy?
Is it Tandy?
I
You're
don't
right.
know.
I'm a moron. Tandy Newton. What I find interesting about this performance is it feels like she is really going for Audrey Hepburn. She's the one actor in this movie giving a performance that would fit into the classic charade.
Right.
Whereas everyone else is doing a weirder, more modern thing. She is very much playing like classic Hollywood star. And especially in terms of like this weird balancing act that charade pulls off, which is all these horrible things are happening and they're rolling off their backs, right? Like water. Like it's like Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn constantly are witnessing people being murdered and going like, oh, ho, hum, and making small like Hollywood banter.
It's so like when she's like, I wouldn't take a bath in there if I were you. Like, it's just so charming. Like,
Yeah.
and
I
then
find
he does
her
it
very
anyway.
charming.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
just delightful.
It's very odd, though, because she's on a different tenor than everyone else, where although Demme is trying to be playful, I feel like he's a little more interested in the stakes of this world rather than charade, which treats death as like a weird inconvenience. This movie, like every time someone dies, it lands with proper emotional weight. He is concerned about them being human beings and not like nameless thugs.
It's totally true. Although I did find it really weird that Lisa Gay Hamilton dies in a pile of lettuce and tomatoes.
Very weird.
Very,
Like
very weird.
visually, it was very strange.
And no
I
one's
didn't-
mad about it.
No.
Yeah.
Like, people should be maybe a little more upset about it, right?
They react the same way everyone else in charade does, but like you feel like Demi's empathy is like, this is a loss of human life.
Of course.
And which it is.
Well, but then Tandy Newton starts crying, and it feels so odd at that point in the movie that she is reacting that strongly to something because you've seen her respond to news that her husband got murdered with
Well,
a bunch
she
of
was-
pithy like bon mots.
She was definitely going to divorce him.
She was
She's
she
going
was
to
definitely
divorce
going
his
to divorce
ass.
him.
Even though Stephen Delane is a very charming and handsome man with a nice face.
Weird look in this film.
They gave him that
They
hair,
gave him the
greasy
weird
hair.
wig.
They're giving him the Da Vinci Code hair.
And the thing that Game of Thrones, which he was on for many years and despised every second of, is he's been very
Really?
clear. Yeah, he's always just been like, it was stupid and I didn't like it. And everyone's like, it's like your most famous role now. And he's like, well, it was awful.
He played the Thrones?
He was Stannis, my personal favorite Game of Thrones character.
I've heard that name.
The lobster?
Stannis the lobster?
He has the personality of a lobster?
He does have a bit of a personality of a lobster. Wait, what were you going to say, David?
Charlie gets more screen time in this than the original. In the original,
Yes.
he just
Yes.
dies and gets a nice close up. But that was what was weird. The original, the deaths are all very visceral.
Yeah.
Like drowning in a bathtub, stabbed in the
Yeah.
throat.
The
Yeah.
deaths are very Hitchcocky,
Yes.
and then no one takes them seriously.
Exactly, which is delightful.
Right.
And this is weird, where it's like the deaths are sort of like offhand, but everyone takes them very
Because
seriously.
Yeah.
Demi is such a sweethart. He is so fundamentally, right, as
Like, I'm
you say,
still-
just upset about,
I'm
you know,
still
a
not
person.
completely sure how Ted Levine dies.
Me neither.
Horribly. He died horribly. But
I assume he was like blow darted or poisoned.
he's like he was poisoned or scared to death by Jim Robbins.
But also, there's an earlier scene where he's doing acupuncture on himself, and no one comments on
He
it.
has like the 3 needles just hanging off his
Right.
left cheek
So you're
or
like,
whatever.
is he trying to treat a very specific pre-existing medical condition, or is he a guy who's just constantly experimenting?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Levine's just got such good energy in any movie he makes. Like, he's just always someone I want to pay attention to.
Yeah, he
anytime
hunks.
he's on.
Oh, I feel it's safe to say this at this point, but when I made Ain't Them Body Saints, we cast Ted Levine in it, and for
In the Carradine
in
part?
the Carradine part,
Wow.
he wasn't ultimately able to do it, but for a brief period, I was in touch with him.
Yeah.
And the first communication he ever sent to me was an email with a video attached, and maybe I might be able to find it. But it was just him playing the banjo for 4 minutes, and at the end of it, he looked in the camera and was like, "Howdy," and that was it.
My.
And I was
God.
like, and so even though he didn't wind up being in the movie,
He just made me rock hard.
I will treasure that forever.
Wow.
And hopefully someday I can work with him.
God,
Wow, that's magnificent.
that fucking rules.
It's as good as it sounds. Like I'm
Yeah.
not underselling it at all, or overselling it at all. I'm perhaps underselling it.
We were talking about in the Silence of the Lambs episode how it's interesting that he's a guy who's never stopped working at
Yeah.
things of various sizes, and it still feels like he's underused. It still feels like he so rarely gets the chance to really play to his strengths, even though he does such a wide array of different things in different genres with different people, and it feels like he's out there.
Right.
He's just so fascinating.
He is somewhat fascinating. I really what's he done recently?
He was the villain in the last Jurassic World movie for the first half.
Oh, that's right.
Until it becomes an auction thriller.
And which the auction thriller is unfortunately the part I like more in that
Same
movie.
here.
He's fine in that movie, but it's also like a character that's been done in
every
Jurassic
single
Park.
yeah, every
Right.
single one of those.
So it's
movies
just
does
kind
that.
of he's like, no, but I'm the big game hunter who's really figured out what I want.
He's
here.
playing Muldoon, but
Yeah.
older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a movie that just sort of happened.
Big hit.
Yeah, big hit.
Did you see the short film?
I did. Can I throw out a hot take? Because everyone was asking for
Oh,
my
the
take on
Trevorrow
Yeah.
film. I didn't. What was it called?
it. A Battle at Big Rock.
Okay.
I kind of liked it.
Uh-huh.
I think it's the best thing Trevor has directed.
It was we shot The Green Knight, the movie I'm finishing now, in
Yeah.
Ireland, and they shot that in Ireland. So they we were starting prep while they were shooting that. So we got to go.
Andre Holland is in it?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
And it was like a random thing that they shot in Ireland, but because it takes place in California.
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool to go see a big T-Rex animatronic on stage. I have to admit, I was like, I see the
rules.
appeal. Like that's like, it's the movies are what they are, but getting to make one movie with a giant animatronic T-Rex is pretty awesome.
But also, the one he previously directed didn't have any animatronics. The only animatronic in it is the one dinosaur that's dying. So it's nice that Battle at Big Rock has active animatronic dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty moody.
Sure.
It's nice in that it feels like it's very focused on what it's doing. It feels very streamlined. I think it ratchets tension pretty successfully. He's working with a good actor. I think the end is pretty interesting because it feels like the first time I've clearly seen Trevorrow having his own totally unique take on the Jurassic World that isn't tied to
To the
what
visiting the
Spielberg's
old
done.
park. Right.
You
Yeah.
talking about the ending, like the credits, the ending?
Yeah.
The goofy, here's people interacting with dinosaurs in real life.
The end
perhaps
credits
horribly.
of the film are cell phone footage of people having terrifying encounters with dinosaurs out in the real world.
What was that Russian dash cam movie?
Oh, yes, it's like that.
That should be with the entire next Jurassic
yeah,
Park
what the
movie.
hell is that called?
It's not called the car movie, but it's called
It's something
the
like that,
something
yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
right?
The road movie.
The road movie. It made me kind of excited to see what the next one is. I would so thoroughly love to be proven wrong and go hog fucking wild on the next Jurassic World. And that the short
like
gave me
dinos.
a little bit of excitement.
Cool. I'm going to watch it.
Yeah. Ding dong.
Oh, okay. I live in fear. Open the door.
Craig. Dun, 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 dun,
I don't know about this.
dun, 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 dun. It's me, Mario.
How you doing, buddy?
It's me, Luigi.
Oh, hey, Luigi.
The Mario brother, Luigi Mario.
I forgot that you don't really have quite as thick an accent as your brother.
Well, because I don't feel the need to be on all the time.
Fair enough.
I understand it's like I'm a performer. My brother's gone a little bit into Larry the Cable Guy territory here.
Sure.
I love a Peroni.
Oh, you're here to talk about Peroni?
I mean, yes, of course, we love a fine Italian beer.
Right.
Okay? If there's one thing that Mario and I can agree on, even if we disagree with the boundary between our personal lives and our public personas, it's dolce far niente.
Dolce far niente.
Dolce far niente.
It's an Italian phrase. It means the pleasure of doing absolutely nothing.
And
it's
see, that's-
my brand of enjoyment, I must say.
I'm with you too. I, Luigi, feel the same way. I love to just kick back at the end of a hard day of work with a Peroni, which I find nothing takes the edge off, quenches my thirst. Mario, on the other hand, is out there every day, even off hours.
Hopping
He's
on Goombas.
picking up mushrooms, stomping on.
I like
What
to.
can I say? I'm married to my work.
I like to slow down from my busy life.
Me too.
Enjoy a moment. Crack open a beer.
I don't need to get some magic star all the time, be running around. You know what I'm saying? I'm with you, David.
Peroni was born in Italy in 1963 by the Peroni family.
Like a me. No, we were born in Brooklyn.
Their vision was to create a beer that would embody the Italian values of quality, craftsmanship, and style. It's a refined beer
Yeah, of course.
with a distinctive, crisp, and refreshing taste, balanced aroma, very Mediterranean, good for the flavors of the Mediterranean. You know what I mean?
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're having a nice Italian meal, maybe some pasta, a nice salad,
Yeah.
some olives.
It's a great thing to have at a restaurant, but it's also a thing you can pick up at local locations. You know, it's like it feels like a fancy beer, but it's available.
Yeah, it's best enjoyed with some friends. You could serve it as like an aperitivo, right?
is.
For the couple hours before you're dining, where you're just enjoying life.
Spaghetti.
They're suggesting having it with like a meat and cheese board, maybe some olives and nuts, some bruschetta. Peroni is brewed in Italy using a meticulous brewing process and only the highest quality ingredients. They're carefully imported to the U.S. The small town of Bergamo in northern Italy produces Nostrano dell'Isola maize exclusively for Peroni. Sorry that I was getting a little...
No, I think it's a nice accent.
Yeah, thank you. Peroni, it's a great beer.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's a clean, refreshing taste, okay? It's an ideal beer to enjoy when you want to relax like me, Luigi Mario.
Right.
And whether it's an informal night out with friends or a special celebration or a boss battle with Bowser. I want to make this clear, actually. I don't think you should drink a Peroni if you're battling Bowser. Just because the stakes are a little high there.
I agree. You can look for Peroni for your next happy hour, or as the Italians call it, aperitivo.
Sure.
You can find it in cans and bottles at your local grocery store. You can follow them on Instagram at Peroni USA, one word. It's Peroni Italia. Whatever you do, do it beautifully. This is for people over the age of 21 only.
And not for Goombas.
2020, imported by Birra Peroni International, Washington, D.C. Truth About Charlie.
Truth About Charlie.
Truth
Tandy
About
Newton
Charlie.
is doing real old Hollywood stuff. None of the deaths are taken seriously by the characters, but they are by the film.
Yeah, that's true.
The deaths feel kind of incidental in terms of how they actually happen.
There's some pretty
Right.
lovely like Paris location stuff.
Yes.
Like
There's-
the original, they made good use of the city.
Exactly. There's
Yeah.
the Ferris wheel scene is great.
Yeah.
Sort of shades of Third Man as well.
It is one of those things that also doesn't get talked enough about, I think, in Paris-set films, which, much like Beetlejuice, if you say Charles Aznavour twice, he shows up and serenades you. And most films totally overlook that.
They do. They just don't say it.
It's a scientific fact.
I wonder, he was definitely, I can't imagine he was there at the same time that they were shooting Mark Wahlberg and Tandy Newton at the end of the movie. So Jonathan Demme's like, all right, guys, look in the camera. Imagine this charming old French man singing to you and just dance and smile. Just smile.
It's such
so
a
much
weird
smiling.
because they like kiss. They have this like Hollywood happy romantic ending. Then they look straight at the camera, and you're like, is this movie going to end with them just winking to the camera and going, we're movie stars? And then you realize, no, it's Demme doing his like subjective close-up. And in fact, they're not looking at the camera. They're looking at their old buddy, Charles Aznavour, back for a reprise of his original song from the film. Not his song originally for the film, but the one song he sings twice in 2 different languages. What a weird fucking way to end this movie.
It's a weird way to end a weird movie, but it's a weird movie.
And that's not the ending,
And
as we discussed.
They've done 2 Austin Powers at this point where they do the joke of you hear Burt Bacharach playing,
Oh,
and then
that's
Mike
right.
Myers
Cut to
goes,
him, yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, Burt Bacharach, and the camera whips around to show Burt Bacharach in the location. For Demme to do that after it's been made fun of twice is pretty insane.
right.
I wonder if Demme had watched Austin Powers. I
He
feel like
must
he
have.
had to have. He would have loved those movies.
Yeah.
He would have really felt for Austin. This man, he's out of time.
He's been woken up. Now we're turning him into this Miyazaki figure,
Sure.
though, where
I
he's
think, I mean, okay,
so
so like,
solemn.
I watched this Charlie Rose interview this morning,
Mhm.
and they make lots of jokes about his name.
Really?
Just talk about Charlie. Yeah,
I'm sure.
It's like constantly comes up. The
God, Charlie Rose, what a hack. Because
Yeah.
I do feel like that. He'd be like, oh, Charlie, my name.
Yes.
He's the ultimate example of he was doing so little that it almost looked like he was a genius because it almost felt like it was intentionally minimalistic.
Like, this guy has to be good at
and
what
like
he's doing.
the set's so simple, the music is so sophisticated, and his questions are so dumb that people could use them as launching pads to get into interesting realms of conversation for 10 minutes. That I feel like his guests always made it look like he was a better interviewer. But I've heard this story of when Wes Anderson went on Charlie Rose to promote Rushmore, and apparently took Charlie Rose 30 takes to get Bottle Rocket right. And he went, his first movie, Battle Racket. And they go, no, Charlie,
Cap.
back to, yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Bottle Racket, Battle Rocket.
I once saw him interview Vince Gilligan live at some screening for Breaking Bad or something.
Yeah.
And he was at one point just went, so, the Boston Marathon bomber, Tsarnaev, he liked Breaking Bad, apparently. What do you think of that? And Gilligan was like, I mean, I don't know. I don't like that. You know, like, but he didn't even ask a question. He was just like, what do you think of that? That's his interview style.
But also the Charlie Rose interview style of, here are people who are in the junket circuit, right? They're doing all these like 5-minute interviews where they're being asked the same dumb questions over and over again. Then you go to Charlie Rose. It's spaced out. There's no pyrotechnics. And he leans in and goes, so why do you make this movie? Which is not a very interesting question, but allows someone to
they
get
can just
into
talk.
He literally, he's like, that's the beginning of this interview.
Of course.
So why a remake?
Now, to be fair, a solid question for the truth about Charlie.
Yes.
Why make this movie is a pretty solid question for this one.
So that's when he brought up the term mad spirit.
Okay.
So then you're like, okay,
Wow.
I get it.
Yeah.
I know Demme. I know why he made this movie. It all makes sense. The thing that really got me this morning when I was watching this interview was that he was so happy talking about it.
Right.
Like he was so enthused. You could tell that regardless of whether he was happy with how the film turned out or happy with its reception, by that point, clearly the writing was probably on the wall after the film had been delayed.
Right.
I think that he loved it. And
Wow.
you could just
That's
feel,
nice.
you could feel this coming out. And like that just, and the one time I saw him in person talking about the Robert Downey Sr. film, he was just so pleased to be talking about it, just was so excited to be talking about it. And so that love for his characters, I think, transmitted to the film at large.
Yeah.
And regardless of whether the film is beloved, no pun intended, or not, I think he really cared about them. Like, even if he didn't invest himself completely in them, I'm sure he did, but like, he just like loved the movie. And that was really moving to me to see. And that was one of those things that like I aspire to myself. Is to like have that, like,
to
you know,
just
not
be in
a-
love and
yeah, sometimes they
enjoy
don't turn out. Sometimes they're not the best thing ever. But like, there was integrity behind my desire to make it, and the people I made it with, I love so much, and they did such good work. He always talks about the good work that everyone else does. He says that, you know, he always tries to hire people who are smarter and better than him.
Right.
And
he's so modest and sort of like collaborative in that sense.
And so he never would put down a movie because he'd be putting down his collaborators who he loves so much. And I just really was touched by that.
He was so infectious whenever he was talking about films, whether it was like presenting something or talking about his favorite things or even talking about his own films. And he's maybe the only filmmaker I can think of where any time in any interview, and I've been trying to watch and read as much as I could, which there's not a ton, but throughout this miniseries, anytime he cites the work of someone else who worked on the movie, it always feels so genuine and wholehearted.
He's such
it
a
never feels
sharer,
like he's just sort of giving lip service to someone, where he'll talk about like the great Carol Littleton, one of the best American editors alive. What she did in this film is magnificent. And a lot of times also when people say things like that, it somehow feels like they're complimenting themselves. You know, they're talking about how good that person's work was in their movie, and it's like they're talking about...
I gave them a chance to do good work. Whereas this is
and
more,
look at how much my movie owns.
Yeah.
Versus him, he's just like, what a professional, you know? This person came in and did their job so well, and I'm so grateful for it.
Right.
It is, though, weirdly a movie, almost like it's funny that it got invoked here, but like the Gus Van Sant Psycho, where I can't imagine watching this and not having seen Charade, because it is so convoluted plot-wise that you kind of need to know what the normal version of this movie is to be able to appreciate what he's doing as a director so that you can take away those aspects.
And then there's that weird fact that the DVD had Charade as on the second disc because Charade was
public domain. That's so weird.
So they just chucked it onto. But it's just so funny to think that like the movie comes out, it's a bomb. People are like, why did he remake Charade? And they do a DVD, and Demme's like, put the movie everyone likes on the special feature. Why not?
And
I
Charade,
thought Criterion had put out Charade.
They did.
They had gone out of print.
Okay.
Yeah, it had gone out of print.
And then later it came back, and they restored it and everything.
But it was
at that
available
period
as a
in time,
DVD extra.
At that period in time, it was the first time Charade had been on DVD in like 5 years in any good format. Because there were all these like horrible dollar bin public domain transfers. It's so
What a weird movie.
Also, I feel like people will perhaps listen to this episode and be like, all right, we're going to buckle ourselves in for a weird movie. And it's not weird in the way that you expect. Like, it's weird, but it's not so weird that you're watching Dadaist art.
No, it's right.
It still has like these weird, like formulaic thriller elements
100%,
that don't really work.
They don't work because the stakes are just sort of a little absent.
They feel like doing homework.
And there's no romantic, there's not much romantic tension between Mark and Tandy, even in the scenes where they're like, oh, I have to get undressed and change or take a shower. You know, like these scenes that should be sparking
Yes.
tension don't really, amount to a ton.
No, it's
It's more just you watching Demme have this wild time and do scenes like the scene where Anna Karina is singing and everyone is dancing together, and it's sort of joyful.
If you know who Anna Karina is, you have to like kind of know that. Like, and if you don't, you're like, why does this scene exist?
Right.
Why are these characters doing this? Like, these characters don't know each other yet.
It is also such a weird thing of like talking about the joyfulness of his like filmmaking process and how much he enjoyed making these movies. Most times that we watch like movies that are either disastrous or have disastrous reputations, even if we like them and come to their defense, they very rarely look like movies that were fun to make.
Yes.
You know, it's usually like, man, this was such a difficult birth. How did this turn out this way? Even if the director stands behind it, the actors were miserable, or the production crunch was insane, something went horribly wrong. And this is a weird example of like, it looks like everyone was having a fucking ball, and the movie selectively translates that to the audience. And other times you kind of just can't get in.
Totally.
Yeah.
Completely. I also, if it was $60 million, it must have been a long shoot or lengthy.
That makes sense.
And all in
the budget is
Europe too.
Is tough to reckon with
because it's so like
unless Wahlberg's making like 15, like some
maybe,
huge chunk, right?
But it also feels like it makes sense if it's greenlit as a Will Smith movie.
Yeah,
and they've allotted
definitely,
right. Even if Wahlberg is getting a 25% pay cut from what Will Smith would have gotten, he's still probably getting an insane amount. And they've also adjusted everying in the budget to the level of Will Smith.
That's why people don't say his name twice.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, he's like in $10 million, please.
You know, with a movie that
I am so small.
The movie,
I'm
like
Hutcherson size.
That I think it's, if I were listening to this, and went and watched this movie, the movie I think I'm going to get is Ocean's 12.
Of course.
Right. Something that is basically like challenging every formal storytelling convention in Hollywood.
It's like, what would Harmony Korine do with this movie?
And a movie that is similarly rejected by mainstream audiences and only performed better because it was coasting off of the movie that everyone loved.
Exactly.
Like the most purely enjoyable movie of a decade is then followed by another weird experiment where a director's like, I want to make an homage to all those weird, convoluted Euro thrillers.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, Ocean's 12.
Yeah.
Great movie.
Yeah.
Fucks.
I just want to do Soderbergh, but I don't know how we do it.
It's so long. It's so long and with so many peaks and valleys that like...
What if you like skipped every third film?
You'd have a great series on your hands, but you'd also be skipping a bunch of great movies.
Films,
That's sort of the thing with Soderbergh where you're like, yeah, you can edit, but even the bombs or the weird ones are fertile for discussion.
So can I tell you a crazy thing I've been thinking about that I haven't even pitched to you off mic, but it's a thing I've been experimenting with in my brain, and I want to put this out there as a flyer.
What an incredible setup. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
What if we all move to Mars? No. Like someone like Soderbergh or like Scorsese who we'll talk about where we're like, oh my God, they're so great. They have like well over 20 movies.
Yeah.
It covers so many different periods and genres. You can't really isolate it to just this phase of their career. It will feel incomplete. Mm-hmm. There's not a clear division point like there is with Spielberg or Verhoeven or whatever. I've had half a thought recently that was like, what if you did someone like Scorsese and we committed to we're going to sandwich it?
Right.
Like we're going to do half a Scorsese, we're going to do 2 or 3 little filmographies in between.
I like
then
that you're doing half
back.
of a Scorsese movie. We're just going to do half of a movie.
We're going to do half of a movie. But you know what I'm saying? That you would go like, we'll do Soderbergh up until here.
Yeah, which we did with Spielberg.
But then we're committed to we'll come back and do the other half within the same calendar year. I don't know. Is that an insane idea? I want to see how people react to that.
It's out there.
It's out there now.
It still becomes a giant insurmountable number of movies to cover.
Totally.
But
it just
you have
prevents us from having 6 months where we're only talking about one person.
Okay. Yeah.
Right,
I mean,
it's a thought.
because Scorsese's the other one, like Soderbergh, where it's like 20 plus movies.
Yes.
But I think they're basically all worth discussing and would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So it's a year. You just have to commit 2022 to Scorsese and 2023 to Soderbergh.
Right.
With like a little break for
and then in
whatever.
between, in the middle of Scorsese, we do Walt Becker. We do.
For fuck's sake. Okay. let's play the box office game.
Okay.
The film, just to point out, as I believe we discussed, made, I think, $6 million domestic, so not good.
And one overseas. I think it made 7 worldwide.
Which is, hey, European movie. That's a real flop. Even the Parisians weren't buying it.
I mean, it made even less than Black Hat.
It made less than Black Hat.
Although adjusted, it probably lapped Black Hat.
So it opened... I mean,
Wait, and what was the budget of Black Hat again? That was like 200 million.
It wasn't that bad, but I think it was close.
It was over
to
100. It was over 100.
He spent $1.
Yeah.
His movies are not
Ever.
The way it opened, they opened it on 700 screens in late October. It's October 25th.
Real vote of confidence.
You know, and it just opens to 2 million. It's the 14th. It's, I mean, just a death
Doesn't
blow.
open. Yeah.
Does it ever go wider? Or is that...
It's a great question. Does it get to expand? Let's see. I'm still getting used to this new box office mojo. No, it does not.
Wow.
Nope.
I mean, in that case, the multiple is better than I would think
That's true.
if it did 6
That's true.
off of
That's
2.
true. But number 1,
Okay. October 2002.
the inverse of this movie, a very cheaply made film that was a huge hit.
The Ring?
That is number 2.
That was what I was going to say.
Interesting.
That is number 2. So that is a real sensation.
That's
Yeah.
the only movie I remember that's not like, because like this period of time was like defined for me by Punch Drunk Love and The Ring. Like
Yeah.
the 2 movies that kind of like rocked my October.
The Ring was kind of seismic. I feel like we don't give it enough credit as a cultural
obviously
force.
we want to do Verbinski,
Yeah.
and it is an underrated part of his career, and it is a good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
My hot take is I like it more than the original.
I think that
I kind
it's
of agree
a
with
better made film than the original. I do think that the original has that scare that is so profound of her coming out of the TV for the first time. And that was a movie that I just rented from my video store knowing nothing. And when that happened, I really did jump out of my skin.
I think the Gore Verbinski one has the girl under the cabinet door shot cut, which is even scarier to me.
Yeah.
To where to this day I will not watch that.
I think The Ring was like the first horror movie a lot of people our generation saw in a theater. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like first
yeah.
like really
Yeah.
kind of scary horror movie. I think that the video in The Ring, the tape, is so good.
Yeah.
It's so freaky. I watch it all the time.
I
am going to die in 7 days.
I partially hired Boyan Bazeli for Pete's Dragon because he shot The Ring.
Wow.
And and so I talked to him about that video, and he said they made so many different versions of it at different exposure levels, so that it would illuminate the actors' faces at different. It was like just like getting into the technical
cool
nitty gritty of that video was really exciting.
That video, it's on frickin' YouTube.
yeah.
You can watch it anytime.
That's also a movie where like it opened to like 14, and then it went up the second weekend, and it ended up doing like well
Opened
over
to
100.
15, went 18 the second weekend, which is this weekend.
Yeah.
18 the third.
That's
impressive.
nuts.
That's so
incredible.
crazy. And makes 129 domestic, 248 worldwide.
I mean, 129 off of 15 is a pretty rare
It's
phenomenon.
bananas.
Yeah.
Is that like Naomi Watts' biggest hit? That's not like a King Kong.
It's those two. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then The Ring 2 just kind of like doesn't
exist.
Yeah. Even
Where they give it to Nakata.
Yeah. And then Rings. Did anyone see Rings?
The plane had the tape was on the plane.
What?
That was a pretty good.
Too many screens.
That was effective on the trailer. Like,
It
I
was
like,
effective
when I saw
on the trailer,
I was
but
like-
it
I was
also did feel like,
Yeah.
oh, is there a plot to this movie, or
Yeah.
is this all they got? Anyway, so that's number 2. But number 1 is it's a comedy. And it's an independent-ish film.
That's a big hit.
Huge hit. Makes not huge, but it makes 64 on. I want to find the budget on a 5 budget.
Wow.
It's a TV spinoff.
Oh, it is one of the best films of the 2000s. I feel like this is a somewhat controversial opinion, think it's probably the best one.
Sure.
This is Jackass the movie.
It is.
An American masterpiece.
Yes. You think it's 3 the one that people really gravitate towards?
That's the one, yeah, because
because the 3D.
3D.
But people also love 2.
The reason 3 is like beloved is because it gets so emotional at the end.
Right. Yes.
They're like, we're all getting old,
right?
And let's look back at the good times we had together, and so that makes everyone.
It's
like
great. It's one of the best uses of 3D ever. It was truly
Absolutely.
a stunning film to watch in the theater. I also think there's the added subtext of Steve-O has gotten sober, and the entire gang decides to do the whole movie cold turkey out of solidarity with him. So it's the one movie where suddenly they have dread every time the thing's about to happen. Whereas in the other ones, you can tell they're constantly drunk and they're just like reckless abandon. Jackass 3D has the moments where they're just like, why am I doing this? And then the thing starts.
That, I mean, maybe this was true for you guys too, but it really was. I went to a boys' school, as I've spoken about on this podcast.
United States, country of Jackass.
Very common in the United Kingdom to have single-sex education.
Oh, this is so funny. You misspoke. You meant to say the United States.
All right, now you get to do it. Yes, the United Kingdom. I grew up there.
No, state. What?
All right. And just any lunch break, we're all hanging out in like the homeroom or whatever. Someone would be like, remember on Jackass when they did this? And then it's just like an hour of boys relating scenes from a show we've all watched.
My exact experience.
So boring, and yet like that's all they wanted to talk about.
That is a vital memory for me. It's just relating, like it was Jackass and The Simpsons.
Yes. The Simpsons, right, which was more my speed.
Remember
but
when?
I watched Jackass.
Remember when?
But like Jackass was also like the only really like Boise thing that I ever felt infected me. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure, you weren't like really a wrestling fan. You weren't. I'm trying to think of
any
other
sports. You know,
obviously.
that wasn't my favorite ilk of comedy.
Yeah,
when it got to that level of conversation, if it was video games, usually music genres, like I would always sort of be a step out of my male friends at that time. And Jackass was the one thing where I was like, I am as into this conversation of comparing Jackass clips.
Totally. No interest in cars, sports.
No.
Most music. Yeah, but Jackass 100%.
It's just kind of perfect, and it's also one of those things where it's like you only realize when other people do it poorly what a kind of magical thing they lucked into. Because so much of it is the dynamic of them. It doesn't work if the guys aren't as close as they are on Jackass, and you can tell they actually love each other. And when people make it and it's kind of sadistic, and people just fucking with
what are
each
the
other.
other versions of it? Like, because post-Jackass...
I feel like it's 87 MTV shows that we don't even remember the name of.
Right.
Where you're like, it's a group, they kind of do the same thing, and they promote them really hard. It was 5 episodes and it disappeared. I feel like I've seen a lot of people who I can't even remember try to imitate that kind of thing. And even the Jackass spin-offs never worked
as
well.
were pretty bad. Yeah, that became a little sad, too. Wild Boys.
Yes.
Remembers Wild Boys?
The Viva La
Viva La Bam, of course.
Viva La Bam is the one I know of.
Number 3 is a film. I feel like we've talked about a week. I've been trying to find which one, but like a weekend close to this weekend, because a lot of these films we've talked about before. It's a horror film. I've always thought it's a pretty good time. It had a great tagline.
13 Ghosts or Ghost Ship? Was it a dark?
Ghost Ship.
Okay. Yeah.
See Evil. Juliana Margulies. Gabriel Byrne.
Yeah.
Crazy scene where a wire cuts a whole party in half.
Man, I missed those Dark Castle movies.
I know.
Like, it was like a great brief period where like every Halloween you'd get a really good.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't good, I would like really enjoy watching them.
Was Dark Castle the Joel Silver? Or was that the Sam Raimi?
Silver and Sam Raimi?
Because Raimi had one and Silver had one.
I think it was Joel Silver.
And it felt like it was good for business that they were like competing. They were like the Beatles and the Beach Boys, where they were like driving each other.
Sam Raimi went on to do like, he did The Grudge, the first Grudge.
Silver and Zemeckis.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It was basically the Tales from the Crypt Crew.
Right. That was Dark Castle.
House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts, Gothica.
Yeah, Gothica.
So Ghost Ship, I mean, not a hit. Made 30. I would say that's probably below expectations.
Memorable opening scene.
Incredible opening scene. Good premise.
Won Best Picture.
It did win the Academy Award for Best Picture 3 years in a row.
Yeah, weirdly.
They just kept giving it back.
They changed the rules.
Number 4. And I wonder if this is on Disney Plus. It must be. Is a Walt Disney romantic comedy, but you know, I would think it's a PG-13. You know, with a big movie star.
Is it Touchstone or is it Disney proper?
Well, you know,
that makes a big difference.
I you know how the box office sites just say Disney.
I know.
Oh right, and I forgot if you search for this.
So okay, it's October.
There's multiple.
2002. It's a Disney romantic comedy, but you think it is gentle enough that
it was a Touchstone.
It's gentle enough that you would not be surprised were it on Disney Plus.
I don't think it's this, but for some reason Serendipity popped into my head.
That's a fair guess, but it's not that.
I remember
it is,
specifically
sure,
that being a Wake of 9/11 movie.
That's right, a year before.
Yes.
Yep. But it's probably the same general time of year.
Yes. You said it is or is not on Disney Plus?
It is.
Because it's interesting which things
make the cut. Dan in real lives. Dan's in real life. It's like attorneys general. The Dan's in real life.
Talk about the stars of this picture.
Well, you got a big female star of the decade.
Is it Sweet Home Alabama?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, that has one of my favorite lines
Really?
of all time.
Not
When
a good movie in my
When
opinion.
Josh Lucas goes, "Girl, I knew you used to be fearless."
He does say that.
It's
That movie,
such a good line.
One of my biggest problems with that movie is that they're so, I think I've talked about this, but they're so like, oh, maybe it's not. I could have sworn I saw it on Disney Plus. Now I'm not seeing it. All right. Eddie Tennant.
Andy Tennant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not Andy Richter. Would love to see what he'd do with that movie.
And he was busy controlling the universe.
He was busy controlling the universe around there. No, it's so committed to the premise of like she hates Alabama and hates where she's come from and is very
I haven't seen it, but I just like that
she's
line in the
very-
trailer.
It's a weirdly angry movie.
Well, when she has come back, she's like, "You fucking hicks! I got out of here specifically because you're all such hicks." And Josh Lucas is playing this guy who makes like lightning sand,
lightning, like where they scoop up like the lightning hit. And
right,
it's like
he's
a
making
beautiful-
like sculptures. He has a
Like, it
seaplane.
feels like he's at the Brooklyn Bazaar.
He's a very successful independent businessman.
And then like an artisan.
Yeah, right. I mean, there should be a scene where he like files his taxes just to prove where it's like, this man has an LLC. He's selling his art. He's got a great thing going. And she's like, "Gah, you hick."
And Patrick Dempsey plays the Baxter in that movie.
He's the mayor's son, and the mayor is Candace Bergen.
Right. And he takes her on a date
The mayor of New York, to be clear.
He takes her on a date to Tiffany's, and it turns out he has closed down the entire store, and the lights go on, and all the employees are there, and she can pick whichever ring she wants for her proposal. I think
is
that's
his
what.
lightning art being sold at Tiffany's? Like,
No,
would that
no,
be the
these
reveal?
are two different guys.
I know, but like, wouldn't that be an amazing reveal? Like, she's like, any ring you
maybe
want,
it is.
and she's like, that one.
If the movie were good,
Number 5 is the word of mouth sensation of the year. We discussed it recently on the podcast.
My Big Fat Greek
The
Wedding.
Big Fat Greek Wedding.
It will never happen again.
How long ago did that open?
They said it's
April?
28th week, and it's made 177 on its way to 241.
I can only
insane.
like. I was a projectionist in this period.
Yeah.
I can only imagine how shitty that print was by this
Oh.
weekend. Because we never got replacement prints unless something horrible happened, but they would just get like Titanic was in horrible shape when we let that one go. And
That is so funny
And
to think about.
Big
right.
Fat Greek Wedding must have just been in tatters.
I mean, because it only finishes its box office run the following March.
That sounds about
I think it plays for 11 straight months in wide release theaters.
it played through to April 2000.
It played a full year.
It played a full. It played 50 weeks 51 weeks at the box office.
That is fucking
When it hit 52, they were like,
bananas.
you know what, wrap it up.
Right. That's reserved for Jackie Robinson. You gotta leave before you
And
hit
has Punch
50.
Drunk Love been out for like 2 weeks at this point?
Punch Drunk Love is number 7. And it has been out for 3 weeks.
Wow.
You're really, I mean, your projection is sister.
Yeah.
You got Red Dragon, speaking of Hannibal, which is doing just fine. You got The Transporter. Funny to think that that's that old a franchise. Brown Sugar, which I think
That's a
is
good
kind
movie.
of a fun
Yeah.
movie.
Is that the one? When was the first time you fell in love with hip hop? Or that was the tagline for that one? Or is that?
Is that the tagline for
Good
that
tagline.
one? I just Googled Brown Sugar, which is as stupid as Googling Sweet Home Alabama.
You're on a dad rock roll.
The rhythm, the beat, the love, ... and you don't stop. Brown Sugar.
Well,
You got The Tuxedo as well. Just wanted to shout out The Tuxedo.
it's kind of incredible how much confidence
Jackie
everyone
Chan.
had in Jackie Chan making American studio films after Rush Hour and how no one actually knew what to do with him. And he talks so dismissively about those movies where he's like, yeah, that's stupid. That's not what I'm good at. I don't understand why they want to put me in a tuxedo with a bunch of kids. But he just did them. He cashed the checks.
He did. He cashed those checks.
Only that,
Yeah.
yeah.
But he always talks about, he's like, I don't understand this American sense of humor. This is not funny. The action scenes are bad. It's a bad premise.
There's that
And I'll
other.
take it made out to cash, please.
What's the other one with a bunch of kids? The Medallion? Is that the other one with a bunch of kids?
Well, no, there's The Spy Next Door.
The Spy Next Door is
Right,
the one I'm
yeah.
thinking of. The
That's him
Medallion
doing the
is
pacifier. The Medallion's a weird.
More
it's
of a grown up.
Claire
it's like
Forlani?
Is it-
yes, and
is
it's
it-
him doing the Golden Child.
Is it Rennie
essentially.
Harlan directing?
I
It's
think it
someone like
is.
that. Yeah.
But that's like a mystical.
Gordon Chan directed that.
Okay.
So wait.
Wait a second.
Did Rennie Harlan direct a
Yeah,
Jackie Chan
Harlan
movie?
must have done a Chan, right?
Brian Levant made The Spy Next Door.
Of course he did. Director of the Flintstones.
Well, you know what? Let me just look up Rennie Harlan.
Yeah.
Hopefully he is not a Leonard Skinner song or a type of baking ingredient.
Just add 2 scoops of Rennie Harlan and you'll get
Rennie Harlan did Skip Trace.
Oh, well, that's a real...
The recent
With Knoxville.
Knoxville.
Yeah.
Yes.
Remember Who Am I? Who Am I?
Yeah.
Remember that one?
There's the one I loved was
It's a Hong Kong one, but he wakes up and he doesn't know who he is, and he goes, "Who am I?"
For the entire movie.
the one I loved was Mr. Nice Guy,
Yeah, that one.
where he's like, I don't want to fight, and he kept on knocking people out by accident.
But isn't that kind of the tuxedo thing too, where he's like, "Whoa, I'm not in control of my body"? That becomes the joke, like using his
The
body.
tuxedo was like
against
the
him.
bionic tuxedo, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But it's also the difference of like the American films always had to have such a convoluted, overthought hook. And
As to why he could do the things he does.
right, in his films, it's like, I don't know, this is the guy's temperament. He's drunk. Let fights proceed for the next 2 hours. End credits, masterpiece. And then the tuxedo is like, 15 years ago in a secret underground lab, a tuxedo was developed. 4 medallions were buried in the desert many centuries ago. Like, it's always so overcomplicated.
The medallion has the poster where Claire Forlani's leg is in some crazy angle.
Yes.
That can't be real.
Right, it's like coming out of Jackie Chan's head.
Oh, like Ty Sheridan's leg on the Ready Player One poster.
Yes.
I love.
Ty Sheridan's leg on that poster is banana.
Unbelievable.
2 years later, we're still talking about
What the hell is going on here? This is crazy. It's a full split.
Yes.
It's a line. You could.
Yes.
What's Claire Forlani been in recently? Because she was in something recently.
I feel like she
I'm
was
looking
on a
up that
TV show.
apparently in 2003 she suffered a massive leg injury.
For the listener at home, if you don't have access to the poster for the medallion, if it's not readily available to you, Claire Forlani's legs are at 12 and 6.
Yes, they are. That's correct. Maybe 11:45 and 6 if you're being generous.
11:50 is the most I'll give you.
And Jackie Chan is kind of doing jazz hands. He's sort of like, yeah. Lee Evans is also billed but not seen.
I think he's the villain.
Sure.
I think. I haven't seen the
I
medallion.
wish he was billed, but not seen in the movie. Like he's third on the poster. But
Well, that's the great the Sonic the Hedgehog poster where James Marsden is first billed. It's Marsden, Carey, no Marsden on the poster.
Oh, is he not on the poster?
No, the poster is Sonic
Well,
and
Sonic,
Robotnik.
you gotta make
not enough room. Yeah,
You got to make room for.
But you
Sonic.
don't put Schwartz on the poster.
That is.
And you do put...
Look, at this point,
Marsden
that movie's
above the
basically
title.
about to come out.
Yeah.
it comes out next week, according.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
February
just
20th?
it's coming. It just came out
Okay.
February 14th.
Wow. We're living a post-Scott.
That's just the craziest story
Yes.
in recent Hollywood history. And people were tweeting at me when I tweeted about it being like, it's bad, like fans shouldn't have that control.
Of course.
Where the backlash
Horrible
actually,
precedent.
And I can only imagine, yes, that the Paramount like went to the visual effects studio in Australia and was like, make Sonic look good, and whipping them and like, quicker.
Yeah.
But it is just crazy where it's like they released the trailer. It was a calamity. It was a moral calamity.
Yes.
The United Nations assembled. People were like, this cannot proceed. Paramount was like, you're right. And then they just went dark. And then they come back and they look like this now. And everyone was like, yeah, that's fine. That's A-okay.
Slam dunk.
And it's like, does the movie look like shit? Yeah, it looks like
still
fucking
looks the same,
garbage.
but-
He's like an alien. It looks stupid.
But the difference
But
is...
everyone's like, Sonic looks fine. I wasn't expecting
It
this to be
also-
good.
It
Right.
also looks like the right kind of stupid.
Right.
Like even the jokes in it are like, this is the kind of dumb joke I want out of a Sonic
Somehow
movie.
in that new trailer, Jim Carrey works better than
It's
the
so
first. And
insane.
but I was
It's
wondering,
adjusted everything.
Yeah, it's like
Right.
it's because of the design. Like now, all of a sudden, I can contextualize this movie properly.
Whereas, like, when he looks like the old design, everyone should just be sitting down and being like, what cruel God made you?
And then your tweet at the time was, what a bad approach to making a Sonic movie.
Yeah.
Any Sonic screenplay should start with exterior green rolling hills. And then
Green
you see
Hill
the
Zone.
new trailer.
Yes.
And it opens with the Green Hill
Yes, it
Zone,
does.
him running,
They took the note.
appropriate music,
Right.
him saying, hey, I'm Sonic. I like running fast. You go, great. This is the exact kind of cinematic diarrhea we wanted. Feed it to me.
Good job. So this opens on
It
Valentine's
just
Day.
came out.
It just
It
came out.
just came out this
Can
weekend.
Can
So
we?
romantic.
Can we? What's going to be the top
Oh,
five?
what's going to be?
Oh, this is a great game. God,
it-
no
we
one's ever
talked about-
thought of this
yeah,
before.
like, what
this
will
is
be
an evolution of On the Record.
Wow.
On the record.
You want me to find the release schedule, like for like what's sort of like vaguely on
Pull
the
it up.
book?
I'm going
Yeah.
to pull it up too so we can all look at it. Lowry, you
All
have
right,
your
so
computer.
Birds of
My-
Prey
I don't know.
came out a week before.
Okay, so that'll be hovering around.
You also some other things that you have hovering around that won't be hovering around are the rhythm section, the much delayed rhythm section. God knows if that'll actually come out.
The Reed Moreno film.
There seems to be some kind of Hansel and Gretel horror movie called Gretel and Hansel on the books.
That's from Osgood Perkins, who I think I've really enjoyed, like the
Okay.
Black Coat's Daughter and Pretty Thing.
Oh, I like the black. Yeah, okay.
like
okay.
so he does like weird, like artsy horror films.
I could see, but this is maybe
And
a little more.
It's a little bit
mainstream,
and
right?
But the trailer was pretty good. It's Sophia Lillis from It is is Gretel. And
Yes, I saw this. I mean,
it looks like it could be like a sleeper.
I'm sorry. Lock it
It
up.
won't do.
Lock it down.
It'll be doing okay.
Yeah.
Conversation over. Doolittle will be topping the box office for the 5th week in a row.
No, Congress will have already intervened to strike it from the record. One weekend they'll be like, America can suffer no longer.
You know how
we
that movie,
impeach Doolittle.
That movie's been in. Like they could have taken the Sonic approach with that. Like obviously it was troubled a
Yeah,
long time
right.
ago. They could have just released that trailer
Yes.
a year ago.
Right. Gotten the
Fans would have been
feedback.
in an uproar. And like
the Doolittle heads?
Oh,
yeah.
The
They're
Doolittlers?
epileptic right now. Can I say, I think Doolittle is going to be the film that takes the Sonic phenomenon one step further, where they release it in theaters, and then a week after it comes out, they go, sorry, back to the drawing board. Pull the movie off of screens.
I think it'll be they release in theaters, and then people are like, that was a bad movie, and Universal will be like, the last Dr. Doolittle I
Man, isn't
starred
it
Eddie
crazy that
Murphy.
they used to do that though? Like they'd release a
Yes.
movie. If it didn't
Yes.
do well, let's pull it. Let's tinker with it
Yeah.
for another couple of weeks.
Right.
Heaven's Gate, famously.
Citizens
Yeah.
Band was one of those, right?
Yes. This is my prediction. Bird Sonic.
I think Birds and Sonic are both probably doing in the 40s.
Kingsman.
No, I think if Fantasy
Fantasy
Island
Island,
opens, I
then
think that could be
Kingsman?
then Kingsman, and then I think Photograph could be a sleeper. Like
That could be a sleeper
5 or 6.
Maybe The
Yeah.
Gentleman is hanging on. Also, The Gentleman and Kingsman are too close
Crazy.
together. Get these movies further apart. You can't have Guy
Wait,
Ritchie movie
wait.
and Matthew Vaughn movies near each other.
I thought the Kingsman was a gentleman.
Two different films released two
different
weeks
films.
apart.
Yeah, it's
Gentleman
not good.
is, I think, more of a hard R Ritchie thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's one's
Kingsman, I
McConaughey.
assume,
Yeah.
is more of a PG-13. What's that guy? It's got Ray Fiennes, Harris
Yes.
Dickinson.
Oh,
Yes.
The Gentleman trailer made me laugh more than any trailer I've seen this year, but I will tell you why off mic.
The Kingsman also has Risa Fons playing the villain, who is Rasputin.
He's playing Rasputin.
It's the welcome return of Rasputin
They've
as
done
cinematic
From
bad guy.
Hellboy 1.
From
Hellboy
Anastasia.
1. Yeah, Anastasia. He's been a villain from of course, the end days of the Russian royal family. He was a great villain then.
But I just love his sort of his evergreen value as a villain in movies that aren't about Rasputin. That
It's
you can
also-
always just
right.
throw him in
So
there.
you're like, and guess who's behind it all? Rasputin, that dirty bastard.
Yeah, his powers are just indefinite enough that he kind of just fit in anywhere.
He's bankable.
He claims he's a mystic, but it's all fraudulent.
Does he keep his penis in a jar or in his pants?
Anyway, so great. 2 great box office games. Great
Yeah.
discussion of Truth About Charlie.
I recommend people see Truth About Charlie after having made their way through the rest of
Yeah,
the
I
Demme
agree.
films.
I think you want to
it's-
watch some Demmies, you want to watch Charade.
Yeah.
And within that context, it's a pretty rewarding watch, even if it is not a fully successful movie.
Yes.
On its own, it is a completely
baffling.
confounding object.
It really is. And that's why I think people were really distressed when he's like, I've settled on my next project. The Manchurian Candidate. Everyone's like,
Jesus
you mean the
Christ,
good
John!
movie that's good?
John!
I'm going to remake it. Oh, Jonathan. And then it comes out and people were like, it's actually not
Yeah,
bad.
pretty good.
Right, you know, like,
It's great.
that was sort of the
That's
buzz
about
on
as
it.
good as a remake of Manchurian Candidate could be.
Right.
Maybe
Solid adult
just as good as the
program.
original. I
Right.
don't know. Yeah.
And then Denzel, Shaggy Denzel.
Yeah.
And like, it's like a pharma company or something. I can't, it's going to
I
be
feel
great
like that
to rewatch
and Man
it.
on Fire were the same year, and that was like
Or maybe
yeah.
Man on Fire was the
No,
year few
before.
months before.
I think those
but
are both
I think they're
04.
both 04, yes.
Yeah.
really like the Shaggy Denzel in both of those movies.
There's
Great
a
Shaggy
weird
Denzel.
trilogy that is Manchurian, Man on Fire, and Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, which he's also good in, and that movie's pretty good.
Wait, didn't Taking a Pelham 1, 2, 3 come out after the time out of
Yes.
what was his time?
It is later. It's after what's it called?
The other Tony Scott film.
Which is the biggest spec screenplay sale
Yeah,
of
the
all
time
time.
shuffling one.
Isn't that Deja Vu?
Yeah,
There's
Deja Vu.
also
Yes,
Out of
yes.
Time, but that's the Carl Franklin
Yeah,
movie
yeah.
that's really more
Yes.
just like, look, he's a horny Miami detective
Yeah.
and what's going
That was a
on.
couple years earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
Deja Vu's the one that's like quite convoluted.
Yeah,
right.
but I think those 3 movies are like Denzel is still insanely handsome.
Mm-hmm.
He is remaking like Hollywood thrillers with kind of shabby or more broken men in the lead roles. And the thing was always like, how does Denzel rough himself up enough so that he has big Mathau energy?
And
You know?
Unstoppable.
Yeah, Unstoppable,
Unstoppable. He's great.
is so good.
Those late Tony Scott movies are
Yeah.
fantastic.
I haven't Deja Vu is the only one I haven't seen.
I haven't
which,
seen Deja
from
Vu
what I
either.
understand,
Yeah.
it's a treatise on filmmaking and film montage.
Yeah.
Which I would love to see because I felt like Man Fire was already approaching that in a pretty significant way. Almost, I remember thinking like Man on Fire feels like if Guy Madden got to do a big budget action film,
God, that's a really good take.
and I don't know
should.
if that holds up.
Guy Madden, make Captain Marvel 2. I don't know.
I don't know if I'd actually want to see it.
No, I know.
Yeah,
right.
but-
It's one of those
But it's like,
double-edged.
Yeah,
Does he actually
exactly.
want to?
Yeah.
We want to waste his time on
Yeah.
that or whatever. Right.
But also, Man on Fire comes right after Domino, and Domino, everyone was like, too much, Tony, stop it.
Domino is too much.
And then he's like, give me one more, give me one more.
And then Man on Fire is a lot. That's the one with the
that's the thing,
subtitles.
subtitles,
yeah.
Wait, I love that.
It's so good.
The,
But
the
it's-
use of subtitles.
it's
is
almost-
incredible.
He's hot as death.
It's
He's gonna
almost
paint
like-
his masterpiece.
It's like his Gemini Man, where he like insisted on doing the same thing that everyone revolted against the last time.
Right.
Except Man on Fire was really successful and very well received.
It wasn't that well received, but it was very
The
successful.
New York Times review, I remember being rapturous.
Some people said it was really sordid.
People were really
Yeah.
grossed
Yeah,
out by it.
yeah.
It's kind of an
It's-
insanely
It
gross
is a
movie.
dark
in a-
fucking
yeah.
movie.
It's also really long.
Yeah. It's dark and it's heavy and it's grotesque.
And he blows a guy's ass up.
It's
with
got
dynamite.
one of the greatest line readings of
Greasy started his death and he's about to paint his masterpiece?
no. For me, the greatest line reading is the guy says like I wish, and he goes, wish, one no my wish. I wish that you had more time. And he
So
spaces it out like that.
That's
Love
even
it.
better than Girl on You.
And that's
be fearless.
when he's got to bomb up a guy's butt. He's got a butt bomb.
All right, David, thank you so much for coming in.
The great
Thanks for
David
having me
Lowery.
Please
back.
just come back every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
This is great.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I'll figure out. I'll find a reason.
Yeah,
reason
just,
to.
wipe your slate
Yeah.
clean.
And
know?
your film will come out undecided, undiscled
But
date in
I- I sus- I-
2020.
2020?
So my
This
my
February 14th week,
Yeah. So,
I'm,
so my
It's
guess
a lot of
is
space.
by this point, everyone will have seen the trailer.
Cool.
They'll have formed an opinion.
I'm amped to see this.
I notably get involved with my trailer, so I think the trailer will accurately represent the movie.
Cool.
And any excitement derived therefrom will be justified. It's a really weird movie.
Nice.
We'll see. I'm excited for people to
Is
see
it horny? I think of the tale as so horny.
It's an adaptation of the Tale of the Green Knight.
Yeah,
from Arthurian legend.
So I kind of discovered a lot about myself in this movie, and I thought it was going to be a pretty horny movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very my Catholic chasteness from having grown up Catholic came through, and so it is very horny in some regards, but it doesn't go over the top. And I was kind of disappointed with myself for not pushing that boundary. But I kept,
You've cast such a handsome leading man too. Really,
That's a good-looking guy.
I mean, fans of Dev Patel are going to be very happy. I think
fantastic.
Nice.
I like to
and
hear.
I think that they will, be even bigger fans of him after this film.
Sure.
Any horniness in the film probably will come from his performance.
Has he got locks? Did you
He's
give
got
him some-
locks. He's got
Yes.
facial hair.
Oh boy,
He is a dreamboat
He is such a dreamboat.
Was he using the moisturizer technique?
in his hair.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Do you know this, David?
That article came out
He
while
put
we were
Cetaphil on
yeah.
his hair, and that's the secret.
Yeah.
Well, that works.
It fucking works.
Oh God.
I don't know what to tell you.
If the movie had already opened, I would tell you something else about that product.
All right, let's get off
Okay,
mic. I
we're
feel like
done,
you
we're
have
done,
eight
we're done.
juicy
You have too
things
much
to
to
say.
say.
There's some
Wrap it
exciting
up.
stuff. Anyway,
Yeah.
I hope the movie is. I hope the trailer is getting people excited to go see it, and hopefully it's out by this
So we're
point.
plugging the trailer and,
Yeah.
and film hopefully coming soon.
Maybe it's not.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe it's been sold
A24
to
is like,
Apple.
Green, what?
they're like actually we're gonna sell this to Apple. It's gonna be hitting streaming in 2021.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, thank you for being here, David.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here, David.
Thank you.
And thank
Happy
you
to
for
be
being here,
here.
Rachel. And
I'm David now.
oh, okay. The three Davids. And thank you all for listening. And please remember to rate, review, and subscribe. And thanks to Andrew Gudo for our social media. And thank you to Lane Montgomery for our theme song. And thank you to Pat Reynolds and Joe Bowen for our artwork. And next week we got Manchurian Candidate coming. We teed
Hell
that
yeah.
up pretty cleanly now.
Oh yeah.
So tune in for that. And as always, I think Sonic the Hedgehog is gonna honk.
Can't say I've had that pleasure, Reggie.
Yeah, perfect. Okay,
All right,
ready?
fine.
I'm gonna point at you when it's time for the
All
line.
right.
Have you ever been in love in podcast?
Can't say.
Joshua?
Oh Jesus. All right.
I said I was
Again,
gonna point.
I'm sorry.